Good evening. It's 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, March 22nd. I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls City School District Board of Education. Ms. Stoyko, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Coco?
Here.
Mr. Gomez?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here.
Thank you. Item B is the approval of the agenda. Number 1 is a motion to approve the agenda. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the agenda of the March 22nd, 2023 Board of Education meeting. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of a consent agenda means that all items are adopted by one singular motion unless a member of the Board of Education, treasurer, or superintendent requests that any such item be removed from the consent agenda and voted upon separately.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Thank you. Item C is our opening ceremony. Welcome everyone this evening. Our vision, Cuyahoga Falls City Schools, the hub of our community, committed to a culture of caring. We innovate, we create, we personalize education for all. Our mission, every student, every day, every opportunity. I also want to welcome Ms. Jody Hausman. We recently hired her as our assistant superintendent. She officially starts in our school district on August 1st. I'd just like to stand and recognize her and give her a Black Tiger welcome. And last time she was here, Dr. Selico gave her a stack of t-shirts, and as a Board of Education, we didn't want to be one-upped by Dr. Selico. So we gave her some gifts earlier, but on behalf of the Board of Education, we also wanted to give her some flowers. It was other people, but it's all of us. Number 2 is informational items. This meeting is a meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It is not a public community meeting, although there are opportunities for public participation. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic found on the meeting agenda, the individual must complete a registration form found inside the attendance notebook and present it to the treasurer. Following the introduction of the topic by the board president, followed by board discussion, the individual will be recognized. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic not found on the meeting agenda, they must notify the superintendent and or board president of the topic no later than 3 business days in advance of the meeting. These individuals may share their comments during the board business portion of the agenda. In both cases, the individual will preface their comments by an announcement of their name and address and limit comments to 3 minutes. All statements should be directed to the board president. No person may address or question board members individually. In addition, in public session, the board will not hear complaints about school personnel nor against any person connected with the school system. An unabridged board agenda for this meeting can be found on your electronic device at the address shown on the screen, and for your convenience, hard copies of the board agenda may be found on the table by the sign-in desk where Mr. Medcalf is sitting. It's also where you can find the forms to address the board. The next regularly scheduled meetings of Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education is April 12th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. right here in the high school library. Now for our Pledge of Allegiance and positive reflections, Mrs. Schaefer.
Thank you. Please stand as you're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for my positive reflection this evening, I have a quote from Brene Brown. Let go of who you think you're supposed to be and embrace who you are.
Thank you. Item D is presentations. Our first presentation this evening is our Scholastic Key winners. I'd like to invite up Mrs. Jennifer Schulman to honor our Scholastic Key winners.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Schulman, and I have the privilege of being an art educator here at Cuyahoga Falls High School. It is truly a joy to work with the creative minds that are cultivated here in our district. I have the honor tonight to recognize our students for artwork that they have created that has earned awards at the state level through the Scholastic Art and Writing Award Competition. Since 1923, the Scholastic Awards have recognized some of America's most celebrated artists when they were just teenagers. The students we recognize tonight can find a sense of pride with the fact that they can now count themselves among an esteemed group of the Scholastic's awardee alumni, including Andy Warhol, Stephen King, Charles White, Joyce Carol Oates, and Kay Walkingstick. So, we can't wait to see what you do with your future. No pressure. Our first awardee tonight is Rye Bennett. Rye couldn't be here tonight. So she was awarded a gold key. They created the Plastic Princess. This dress is completely made out of plastic trash bags. After much experimentation and a box of glue sticks, they created the most stunning gown out of unexpected materials. And yes, the best part, I think, is that it is completely wearable. However, she did say she would not wear it to prom because it is incredibly sweaty and hot material. Our next artist is Virgil Farmer. Virgil, come on down. Okay, now you have to stand here while I talk about you. Virgil Farmer was awarded 7 honorable mentions. 7 honorable mentions. Virgil has been prolific in making art this year. The works vary from sculpture to photography to drawing with traditional materials to digital art realm. And just for extra fun, I'm going to read all of the titles of the work. So there was Humdrum, A Competition for Consciousness, I'm Still Here, Iker, Behind Closed Doors, Behind the Mask, and Ingrown. Oh yeah, and Virgil also won a gold key. This was awarded for his photography series, The Beautiful Promise of Decay. But wait, there's more. Virgil is also a creative writer. He received a gold key for his written work entitled Flash Fiction. Fabulous. Thank you so much. Our next artist is Skylar Misroom. Come on down. Skylar was awarded an honorable mention for an incredible colored pencil drawing entitled Below the Great Waves. The work was inspired by the famous Great Wave painting from art history. That mashup of the Great Wave and Skylar's incredible imagination, and you have this master work. Well done. Our next artist is Riker Gersenslager. Come on over, Riker. Riker was awarded a silver key for his glass mosaic entitled The Walk of Life. As you may imagine, by looking carefully at this slide, it was an incredibly labor-intensive process. I encouraged him to make the pieces a little bigger and save time and heartache, but that just wasn't how the project was speaking to him. So, little pieces it was. It took many trips home. Thank you, parents. To complete, and boy, was it worth it. Great job. Our next artist is Lucy Delio. Did Lucy make it tonight? I don't see Lucy. Lucy was awarded a gold key for the sculpture entitled The Crow. This artwork was created in Mrs. McCarter's class. She shared with me that it was based on the concept of a childhood belief. So this is her fantastical representation of the crow. It was formed using Sculpey clay and embellished with feathers. Next we have Miss Anna Leone. Come on down. Anna was awarded a portfolio gold key for her collections of artworks entitled The Forest of Art. Only a few of these portfolio awards are selected each year. The portfolio contains 6 artworks that reflect a theme that were made through her high school career. You can only submit for this award as a senior. There's no higher award for a portfolio at the state level than a gold key. In addition to an art portfolio, Anna also submitted a writing portfolio titled Observations of Self, Surroundings, and Situations. Again, multiple pieces of writing, and she was awarded an honorable mention for that complete portfolio. Oh, and a silver key for her written work entitled Jasmine. But wait, there's one more thing. Anna also submitted her artwork for the Ohio Governor's Show. Over 8,300 art entries were submitted to the state of Ohio this year. Anna's being recognized for being in the top 300 with her artwork, Kiss Me Sunshine. Her work is currently being framed and will be hung in the Rhodes State Office Tower in Columbus this April. Congratulations, everybody.
We're going to take a picture, I think, with all of them. But Ms. Schulman, before we do that, I believe there's an event coming up where we can see a lot of this art and more art that you might want to take the opportunity to inform all of us gathered here about.
What a fabulous suggestion. Yes, the Cuyahoga Falls City Schools All-City Art Walk is coming up on April 19th. So mark your calendars. It is from 5 to 8 p.m., and it is going to be, I can't even describe it, it's going to be super fantastic. Our theme is Art Transports Us, and there are 6 locations throughout downtown Cuyahoga Falls. You just come on downtown, you will find them. The Pavilion is one of them. You've got Cuyahoga Valley Arts Center. You've got First Christian Church, City Hall. Some of our highlights, real quick, because there's a lot. We're going to have a car show. We're going to have the Clifford Mini Auto Museum is going to have a special opening that night, so you can see the auto museum. There's going to be a ride-on train. That's right, kids, a ride-on train that your family can all go on and ride around in the train on right by the pavilion. We're going to have an artist bringing enormous sculptures that you can climb on and get your picture taken. He's a fabulous guy. There's 2 other artists coming that have some great things to share. We're going to have the Cuyahoga Valley Railroad there. They're going to bring a miniature train that you can come and see. There's so much. So don't miss it. April 19th, 5 to 8 p.m. Be there.
We're going to take a quick group picture with them and then honor all of our wonderful top Tigers. So we'll be right back to honor all of you. No, I just saw it in there. Now for our second presentation of the evening, our top Tigers. Dr. Selico.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. I'm tempted to bring Ms. Schulman back up here because she's far more entertaining than I am. So she is a natural at this. Where are you, Ms. Schulman? Come on up. No, I won't do that to you because there's a lot of reading ahead. So good evening. My name is Andrea Selico, Superintendent of Schools. It's my pleasure to be here with you this evening. I appreciate you being here. Let me just briefly start out by telling you a little bit about the Top Tiger Award and the distinct honor that your children will have tonight. So Top Tiger is an award given by the Board of Education to students from each building each month. The students are chosen by various staff members in their buildings, and I get the distinct honor of reading each one of those nominations. I'm going to ask that when we announce the student's name, so students, listen up. When I call your name, you're going to come up here. You're going to, however you need to get here, but you're going to stand over here. We're going to embarrass you a little bit. We're going to give you a flower and some prizes here, and then we're going to read a little bit about you. So that's very exciting. So you're going to stand up here for a while. All right? And then you're going to take directions from Ms. Stewart, who's sitting right here. So we're going to get group pictures and all that fun stuff, okay? And I would also like to add, before we get started, I'm going to, in just a moment, call Mr. Metcalf to the podium because we have many generous community sponsors that take part in this and that are really proud of our students and really a group effort in trying to acknowledge our students. And the Alumni Association has played a big role. So I want to thank all of our partners. And then I'd also like to ask Gary Metcalf, the Executive Director of the Foundation, to say a few words. So Gary, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Good evening, and congratulations to all the Top Tigers and the artists here tonight. It's an honor to be among all of you this evening. It's fantastic. I would like to thank some of our sponsors, Donato's Pizza. You're going to get a little certificate tonight in your goodie bag for a pizza. Dietz's Florist, we get the carnations. Young Screen Printing, who provides the bags. And last but not least, it's not in your goodie bag, but if you see me afterwards, you go out this door, hang a left, and then go down the main hallway left. I have my little office, and you will be presented with a T-shirt this evening. And with this T-shirt, you get to march in the Memorial Day Parade, which is just 2 months away. Summer's coming just around the corner. You'll get more information at your school in the middle of May about that. Some of the things that the foundation has done in the past, we've helped out with class reunions. We sponsor all class reunions. We honor distinguished alumni every year. We provide teacher grants. In the past 10 years, we've awarded over $45,000 in teacher grants. We provide scholarships to graduating seniors, and in the past 10 years, we've awarded over $1 million worth of scholarships for graduating seniors. And we could not do this without the assistance of alumni and friends of the school system. We thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And without further ado, I think we can get started here. Is everybody excited? Yeah! I know you are. I've been watching you. I have. I love that smile with no teeth. You're missing some teeth. Can't wait to see you up here soon. We got another little cheerleader over here. She's ready to clap. She doesn't know what she's clapping for, but she just keeps clapping. I love it. All right. Well, we're going to get started. All right. So we're going to go in alphabetical order by elementary, and we'll work our way up. So our first Top Tiger is from DeWitt, and that person is Braden Wright. So Braden. For someone bigger. Wow, there he is. All right, Braden. You ready? All right, let's see out there, okay? All right. Braden is a wonderful black tiger. He is kind and respectful to adults and his peers. Braden can often be found helping others organize and clean classroom materials without expecting a reward. I love it. He is such a nice mentor to his peers. He kindly helps friends understand difficult concepts when they are struggling. Braden is honest and truthful. He takes responsibility for his actions when he needs to do so. I am glad that Braden is part of our kindergarten family. I know he will continue to grow and be a wonderful black tiger. Congratulations, All right. Next up, we have Lincoln. We have Elena Mizzen. Not here this evening. All right, well, we're going to read about her anyway. So Mrs. Bullock is so proud to nominate Elena to be top tiger this month. Elena is the true definition of a black tiger. She works very hard inside and outside of the classroom. Elena is always showing black tiger pride throughout the day. She lends a helping hand to anyone in need. In her free time, she enjoys cooking, spending time with her family, and riding her hoverboard. Ooh. Congratulations, Elena. Mrs. Bullock is so proud of all your hard work. So congratulations. You're just waiting, aren't you? I don't even know your name, so I don't know when you're coming up. So wait a minute. Did you go to Lincoln? Oh, then I bet you're next. Are you Nora? Yeah. All right, Nora Wise. Nora. Yeah. Yes? She's really focused on all those pictures. All right, we'll get started. Miss Teeter writes, here we go. I remember this quote. I read it. This is about Nora. Are we ready? This is fun. You got to listen. Are you listening? Ready? Dear board. It's the board. Please remember this name. You are going to want to hire this top tiger in roughly 20 years. All right. Keep that in mind. I won't be here in 20 years. I'm sorry to say. Nora, a kindergartner in my class, could easily be the substitute teacher whenever she needs to be absent. Perfect. We need more. Thank you. Ms. McClure, sign her up. Nora is always taking responsibility to complete her tasks in the classroom, but she also goes above and beyond to help others do the same. For example, since the very first day of kindergarten, she has taken a particular student under her wing. She holds his hand to get to our classroom, helps him put away his belongings, and helps him get ready for his first day. She always makes sure he is where he needs to be, and her empathy towards him and others is unmatched. This empathetic nature that Miss Teeter knows will follow her into adulthood will be helpful in her future career as a veterinarian or a helper person. Quotes. Good luck, Nora. All right, keep up the good work. All right, Nora's going to have a job here real soon. All right, next up from Preston, we're moving along. We have Victoria Lane. Oh my. Yes. Wow. We have a princess in our presence. Victoria, hang on one second. Just so you all know, too, I know that some of you may want to get pictures. We will allow you to do that afterwards, too. So I know we saw someone see, but that's fine. We will give you that opportunity. Victoria, are you ready? Dexter? Love it. All right, so Victoria is everything it means to be a top tiger. She comes to school each day happy and ready to learn. Where Victoria truly shines is her kindness towards others. Her loving heart is unmatched for her age. She is kind and loving well beyond her years. Victoria takes friends who are upset by the hand and gives them words of encouragement. She is truly one of a kind, and Mrs. Gemmel is honored to have her in her class. She has made her become a more kind and patient person just by being around her, and your teacher says, great job, Victoria, and congratulations. All right. Love it. Next from Preston as well is Liam Zerby. Liam? All right, well, we're going to hear about Liam. Liam demonstrates the qualities of a top tiger each day in my classroom. He is kind, considerate, and is always willing to help those who need it. Every morning, he not only greets me with a smile and says hello, but also his friends as well. He tries his best at everything he does. Liam makes not only my classroom, but Preston a wonderful place to be. His kind heart and helpful attitude shine through in all he does. Thanks for making a special day for us, Liam. Congratulations. All right. All right, we're moving on to Price. Ready, prize people? All right, we have Lila Horig. Lila. All right. Since being moved to second grade, Mrs. Vargas says that Lila is a wonderful student and is lucky to have her in her class again. Lila is a student who cares about her academics as well as her behavior. She works hard every day to do her best and is always willing to help others. She is dependable and respectful. Mrs. Vargas is proud to nominate Lila as the top Tiger. Congratulations. Ready to move on. She's like, I gotta go. All right. Next one. Our second student from Price is Sikam Tumbapu. Now she's got her clapping. That was your moment. Who's that over there? Is that your sister? Right there? Yes? Oh, well, aren't you a beauty? She is clapping all night. I love it. All right. Seacom has grown both in his academics and with his behavior this year. Seacom has become a leader and a role model for a second grade class. He works very hard to follow the Black Tiger Pride rules of being respectful, taking responsibility, and practicing safety. He comes to school each day with a positive attitude and willingness to give it his all. Together with help from his family, Seacom is having an outstanding year and has earned all A's on his report card. Wow. He is a fine example of a top Tiger. Ms. Kostov is honored to give Seacom the high honor of being a top Tiger. Job well done. Right. Excellent. Oh, yeah, for sure. Get up there. Are you ready for kindergarten? All right, we're moving along to Richardson. We have Jason Hawkins. You got a long walk. There we go. All right. I knew you had it in you. All right. Ready to be embarrassed? All right. All right. Every accomplishment in life starts with the decision to try your best. Working hard, staying focused, and having a growth mindset are all things that describe our fifth grade top Tiger, Jason Hawkins. In class, he consistently chooses to pay attention to both his teachers and fellow students. He stays on task during work times and tries his best when completing his assignments. His commitment to hard work has not gone unnoticed, and currently his grades in all of his core subjects have gone up 1 to 2 letter grades. Awesome. At school, he consistently chooses to make good choices. His behavior and work habits have set the standards for our class. He makes friends easily with his quiet humor, but is also able to separate work time from social time. It is evident from his behavior that he has been taught to not only value learning, but also to value thoughts, rights, and opinions of others. Choosing to try, to work hard, to value and respect others are the accomplishments that we see daily from our Richardson top Tiger, Jason Hawkins. All right, our second student from Richardson. Now, I'm not even going to try. I'm going to try very hard, but I'm not going to try to do it fast. I'm going to go very slowly. So this is. I love this name, but see, are you mom? You must be. So. Okay, all right. So it's Sholanich. Sholanich. Okay. Yola Velati. All right. Okay. And if I really didn't say it right, they're polite enough to just say yes. Good job. So I appreciate that. All right. Sholanich. Sholanich. Say it. You say it. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay. All right. Enthusiasm, light, and kindness are the words that come to mind when describing our top Tiger. In class, she is an enthusiastic learner who not only sparks her own curiosity, but also ignites the spark in others to think, speak, and work with quality in mind. She is a strong student academically who values effort and always tries her best. Not only does Sholanish light up the classroom, but she also lights up the basketball court. Right. She plays on 2 different teams and enthusiastically gives it her all. Whether on the court or in the classroom, her positive attitude and desire to try her best is a winning combination. Sholanish appreciates the efforts of others and is usually the first one to compliment a classmate on a job well done. She also writes sweet, sincere notes of appreciation to her 5th grade teachers frequently, sharing her joy of learning with us. That's very nice. We are so happy that we are able to recognize her spark and her lights. We are confident that this amazing 5th grader will go far. All right, we're moving on to Silver Lake. Gavin Segrin. Gavin is new to Silver Lake this year. All right. He has come in with a great attitude to learn and succeed. Gavin is respectful to every adult and student in Silver Lake. He has the same high standards for his classmates as well. You will not hear him ask a question without hearing please and thank you. Gavin takes responsibility with his schoolwork and behavior every minute of every day. He also constantly encourages his peers to do the same. He helps others whenever he sees a need and takes ownership when he makes a mistake. Gavin practices safety in the building and on the school grounds. It is not easy being the new kid, but Gavin has done it with grace and Black Tiger pride. Mrs. Hutchinson is very proud to present Gavin Segrin as her top tiger. All right, and our last elementary student is Paisley Wilson. All right, when you meet Paisley, you will know why Mrs. Beck picked her. She has a very sweet personality, and everyone falls in love with her. Oh, wow, that's going to be trouble later. All right, Paisley is a very kind little girl. Paisley gets along with everyone because she is always respectful to other students and all adults. Paisley is a Black Tiger through and through. She shows responsibility each day. When she arrives, she gets to work almost immediately on her seat work and always has everything ready for the day. Paisley takes great pride and responsibility for her work. Everything is well done and very neat. She always goes the extra mile. Paisley practices safety each day. She always walks in the hall quietly and keeps her hands to herself. So as you can see, Paisley is 100% Black Tiger, and that is why Mrs. Beck chose her to be her top tiger. Congratulations. All right, moving on to Bolick. We have Bibash Damal. Bibash is an excellent example of a person who exhibits Black Tiger pride. Bibash shows respect in the classroom, the hallways, and every part of Bolick Middle School. He models respect by showing up prepared and eager to learn every day. Bibash shows responsibility both academically as a student as well as being a class act at our school. He strives to be an exemplary student in every class. Bibash shows safe behaviors by practicing good citizenship and takes pride in being a good friend to all. Bibash, thank you for being a great role model to our 7th grade. Our next student is Anna Don. Let's read about Anna. Anna is a very conscientious student who tackles all challenges with a positive attitude and takes great pride in her work. She has been a valuable member of the Bolick community for 2 years, and in that time she has shown that she is the role model and an ideal student who has an innate desire to learn and to grow as a scholar. Anna always has a warm and inviting smile for both teachers and students alike. She models good behavior every day. Anna is a soft-spoken young lady who consistently shows respect for everyone around her, both teachers and peers. I love that little giggle. All right. Next, we have Roberts School, Middle School. We have Aiden Gibson. Aiden? Aiden's unable to be here, but we'll read about Aiden. He is a 6th grader. And the 6th grade staff feels lucky to have Aiden in their building. Although Aiden typically stands out for being one of the tallest people in the building, what he also stands out for is his extremely big hearts. Aiden always has shown the ability to be kind to others, to work hard in class, and to do the right thing even when nobody's watching. His science teacher, Mrs. Schindler, states, "Aiden is a bright spot in my day. You should be very proud of the positive impact he has on the people around him. His work ethic will take him far in life." It's very nice. All right, lastly from Roberts, we have Ethan Johnson. Ethan? According to Mr. Kramer, Ethan is a fantastic student and an even better kid. Ethan is someone who you will find being respectful, responsible, and safe in any classroom he is in. He is a silent class leader who always participates and contributes to class discussions when asked to do so. His diligence towards his own work is commendable, earning straight A's all year. Good job. While his kindness towards others seems to have no limits. However, if you want to see Ethan really excel, check him out on the basketball court where he puts in 100% effort for his teammates all the time. We have 2 basketball players here tonight. All right. Ethan's determination will help him go far in life in whichever direction he chooses to go. For these reasons, we are proud to say Ethan is our top Tiger. Congratulations. Two more students at the high school. One is unable to be with us this evening, and that is Connor Carmody. I just want to make sure you didn't show him. Okay. Connor is a senior who is completing his 2nd year in the Criminal Justice Career Program. Through his career program, he has been able to earn college credits from Stark State College while still being a student at Cuyahoga Falls High School. Connor has been a member of the high school baseball team, and in his free time, he enjoys gaming and spending time with his friends. After graduation this May, Connor has enlisted in the Army, where he plans to pursue a career in police enforcement. Good luck, Connor, and thank you for your future service. All right, last but not least, high school, you always go last because you're the oldest. All right, Maggie Stone. Maggie is a senior at Cuyahoga Falls High School who has a I never got that high. 4.256 cumulative GPA. I was in school, I didn't even know it went that high. So, all right, she has that GPA is amazing, and that's earned her many semesters on the high honor roll. Excellent. In addition, Maggie is vice president of the student council and an officer in the National Honor Society. She has participated in band throughout her high school career, and Maggie has also shown great leadership qualities by being named captain of the high school dance team. Can you get a few more things in there? I'm a little disappointed you only have 4 or 5, All right, so Maggie has studied ballet, and been in training in dance for 16 years. Excellent. After graduation, Maggie plans to attend Baldwin Wallace University to become a pediatric occupational therapist. Nice. Maggie is truly a top Tiger. Brayden and Nora. Nora, another moment.
We're going to get a group picture, and then if families want to come take pictures as well, come on over to take pictures. And then if you want to take individual pictures as well.
All right. Thank you. And thank you to all of you for being here this evening. Your children are here for a reason, and that's because of you. So thank you.
Our third presentation this evening is our superintendent recognition. As we were preparing for our March meetings, we realized it was coming up on 1 year since we hired Dr. Selico. Tonight marks 1 year since we released to our community that she was our pick as superintendent. Tomorrow marks the 1 year anniversary of the special meeting at which we hired her. And as a board, we just thought it was important to take a moment and recognize the significant changes and positive progress that she's made in our district and in our community. So we each wanted to just take a few moments to mention a few things about her, and then we have a couple special surprises that we schemed up. So we'll start down with Mr. Harris.
Yes, I didn't prepare anything formal. Dr. Selico, it's I think I had mentioned this in the past. We first met in Columbus. You were actually teaching a session at the OSBA Capital Conference, and I think it was Miss Coco or I was in there with Miss Schaefer, one of them, and learned so much from you then. Continuing to learn from you now. You came in here. You got to work. You were out in this community. People know who you are. The kids around the school know who you are. The staff knows who you are, and you are just an amazing person to work with. Very approachable. I grew up with this vision of a superintendent in my head. Mine growing up wasn't very approachable. It was here and there, but you are someone that we can all look up to and learn from as well. So thank you so much. It's been a great year, and let's have many more.
I decided to Google, because that's what you go to nowadays. I just put in, what's the best definition of a leader? And Google said, a leader is someone who inspires passion and motivation in followers. A leader is someone with a vision and the path to realizing it. A leader is someone who ensures their team has support and tools to achieve their goals. And I can't think of a better description for you in your role as superintendent since you've been hired for our district. And I just want to thank you for your integrity and your honesty, your humility, and your commitment to our students in this district. Thank you for your long hours and late nights, and thank you to your family for sacrificing their time in the past year, and hopefully that slows down a little as you're settled into the position, and now that you have an assistant superintendent as well. And just thank you for being willing to go through the hard when necessary to get to the other side as well. And even though you may not have a good sense of direction when driving, the complete opposite is true when it comes to our shared vision for this district. So thank you for leading us.
I always have to follow Ms. Coco. I did write a little something so I would not go off on a tangent. So searching for a superintendent was one of the first items of business that we did as this new board in 2022, I guess. Yeah. Was an exciting process, very stressful though. And I didn't let myself get too excited over any one specific candidate, but I knew that we were going to find someone that was going to be a fit for our community. I'm thankful that Dr. Selico has become a Black Tiger. I consider myself still in the learning process. One thing that I'm a really big fan of with Dr. Selico is her respect for each of our processes. When I start to perseverate on something or obsess about something, she does let me talk it out. She doesn't rush me to make any. She doesn't rush me, and she lets me feel my feelings and figure it out for myself. And she doesn't make me feel like my opinion doesn't matter. She lets me ask questions. Sometimes I might ask the same question a couple times. And even though she's been doing her job longer than I've been doing mine, she still respects and values what each one of us has to offer and respects how we individually get from point A to point B. She's earned my respect, and I hope that I've earned hers.
Well, I was wondering when we would get a female superintendent. This is our first, and I am so proud to be part of that decision. Now, not any female would do, of course.
Fair.
They had to be smart, brilliant, kind, considerate, respectful, all that stuff, and motivated. And that's what Dr. Selico is, and I am so happy that she is our first female superintendent and a Black Tiger.
I told Ms. Stoika we were going to ask her to say a few things as well, because she's part of all this too. So, Ms. Stoika.
Wow, what's coming next?
She's all right. I've had worse. Let's say. I have worked with a lot of superintendents during my time in treasurer's office. Some good, some bad. But Dr. Selico is by far my favorite of all that I've worked with. And I'm not just saying that because we're similar. We work similar, so that works well for me in that. But it is just a nice breath of fresh air to have someone that is on the same page with you. these relationships between these two positions can go either way in school districts, and that can really fracture the rest of the district and the board and the seven of us. And so I just really appreciate it. We both came from similar situations in our former districts, and so unfortunately, we've been able to bond over that. I was able to walk her through. It was nice to kind of walk her through like my first year and all those things where you're waiting for the other shoe to drop or you're panicked, and even though logically you still have those feelings. And so I was able to reassure her that nope, this is real. This is real. She would come down many a times and say, Is this really happening? Are these 5 people that are the board? Do they really like this? And I would say yes. It took me a while. It took me a while too, not because of them, but because of my past history. And so I'm just looking forward to the future together because now she's not allowed to leave. So.
Neither are you.
She knows. They both know. I had prepared something to say, and then yesterday I was down in Columbus at this legislative conference that I'll talk more about later, but I was sitting next to a local superintendent, and he goes, "Oh, Cuyahoga Falls, I know you're superintendent." And he goes, "She is just so happy." And I think that's what I want to say, is just that other people see that you're happy, and to us, I think it means that we're doing our job. Not that it's our job to make you happy all the time or give you everything you want, because we've had some hard conversations about things, and we'll have hard conversations in the future. That's part of our job. But we, as a board, can trust you to do your job as superintendent because you trust us to do our job as the board. And I think we're moving forward with a well-functioning district because of that. And sometimes we don't agree, but that's how it's supposed to be. And I think I said before, when we haven't disagreed, it's been the most respectful disagreement I've ever had in my life, because we have all of us have such respect for each other when we disagree. And I really appreciate that. And we had to mark this as the 1 year because even though your contract officially started August 1st, you did so much work in between the day we hired you on August 1st that saying that was really your 1 year anniversary wasn't a fair representation of the amount of effort that you put in on the front end as well. And so on behalf of the Board of Education, we wanted to present you with some flowers as well. And we also have a gift, which you and I have discussed that our thoughts on opening gifts in front of people unless they tell you to. We had that conversation as well because we talk a lot. But we would like you to open this now so we can explain the gift to you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I'll open it. I think I know what it is. I know why you're saying this. Oh, I didn't know that was coming, but that's good.
It's a hydro
I'm not
flask
sure it's gonna help.
with a map of the city because few things. She recently had a massive spill in her car while one morning when Mrs. Schaefer and I were meeting with her. So we need more secure transportation for liquids in her vehicle. She also has a map of Cuyahoga Falls, but she keeps it in her office and then sometimes gets lost. So this way she can take the map with her. And also she once mentioned that when she meets with her soup troops, they all bring their hydro flasks and criticize her for bringing a one-time use plastic bottle. So we checked as a board, we were able to check 3 boxes off with this gift to you.
Yeah.
So.
And don't feel bad, because I still get lost. I've lived it all my life, but I'll still get lost.
That's just because you don't like to leave home very often.
I don't like to drive, but yeah.
But there's one thing about Dr. Selko, at any recognition or any event, she says it should be about the students because that's what our business is. So, working with Ms. Stewart, we were able to get this special message put together from some of our students for Dr. Selko and Mr. Broadwater. If you could please press play for us. You'd yell at me if we didn't include students.
I just wanted to congratulate Dr. Selko on her 1 year anniversary in the district. I've worked with her on Soup Soups, and she's really just a source for kindness and positivity, so I really like seeing that in our schools. I hope that she continues to do great things even after I'm gone, and congratulations.
I just want to say congratulations. Thank you so much for being the first year. I showed you around, and we had a really fun experience. And I just want to say that you're super important, and you have everything done. You're doing an amazing job. Keep up the good work.
Hello, it's Morgan. I would just like to congratulate you on your 1-year anniversary as the superintendent of the Cuyahoga Falls School District. And I would just like to say thank you for helping me my senior year, getting my name out in the community more, and help people understand the perspective of a student's life through doing all these activities that we're involved in. And I would just like to say thank you for helping me with scholarships and getting my plan for after high school and going into real estate. Thank you so much for everything that you do for me and my community.
Thank you to Ms. Stewart and the educators at the WIT who took time out to help us with that. So thank you, Dr. Selico. Here's many more.
Yeah, I'm seldom speechless, as many of you know in the room, and I'm speechless. You have said it all. I'm very humbled, and this is like I have to look to my partner to the right here and say, "Is this real?" Because just pinch me, because this has never been my experience in my life, and I'm just very humbled. And I have an amazing board, and appreciate you every day. Trust me, I remind our staff of that and how lucky they are in the community. Any chance I can get to say how fortunate we are to have such incredible people who are passionate about the right thing, which is children. And so I can go through the disagreements and we can have those tough conversations, because I know at the end of the day each one of you care about kids, and that's first and foremost for me. So thank you. And as I'm sitting here, I get a text saying what is happening right now at my house, because they're just in awe of this right now. They know, they went through it with me, a rough year, and so I know that they're thinking the same thing. What happened? So thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone for enduring all of that. I know that's sorry, it's a little overboard. You can blame them. I had no idea that this was going to happen. I'm sweating over here because
she tried to make it not happen, but we
did.
insisted. And thank you to Ms. Stewart for helping us get a little bit of surprise in there, because I know you're very busy, but we appreciate your help. Okay, now back to the business of students, which Dr. Cruz is going to help us with, as along with Dr. Seifert, presentation number 4, our literacy update. Thank you, Dr. Cruz and Dr. Seifert.
Brought an entourage.
Yay. To help. So we have our literacy specialists. I'll go ahead and pass these out. So each of you has a folder with it has the slides in it, and then just a couple of handouts that we made a little bit bigger so you feel a little better. And then we've got only one or two copies of the dyslexia guidebook from Ms. White.
So if somebody else wants that, I read
I
it
think
online
I have
already.
that.
Does somebody want a copy of it?
We
If
didn't
you
want to
haven't
give
read it,
five,
yeah.
but we certainly can if you would like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you have obviously met Dr. Seifert and I know you have read about the work of our literacy specialists. So we have Julie Halleck, and we have Amanda Heller, and Crystal Parnan. So we're going to each take some time in our slides, so you'll get to hear from them as well. So our objectives for our presentation, we have 4 objectives for you, just to review those components that have been that shift in literacy in Ohio. And then we wanted to focus in on what's happening in our classrooms that represent that shift, talk a little bit about the success that we've seen, and then how we are continuing to support our teachers. So you have in front of you Ohio's plan to raise literacy achievement. We won't go through all of that, but you will see a lot of familiar things that we've talked about, a multi-tiered approach, professional development. You'll see all kinds of great things in there as you read it. But one of those, just to highlight, is about that science of reading. So we're going to talk a little more about that, not too much. And then obviously the other shift, the big shift that we've heard a lot about this year is that dyslexia support laws and what that legislation has outlined and some of the ways that we've already met some of those requirements and then some of the plans for the future. So here's a quick snapshot of that simple view of reading. Very simple. Just one thing to point out, it is a multiplication sign. It's not an addition. So if you think about your basic facts, if you were to have 0 times anything, you know that the product is 0. And that was intentional in making that a multiplication symbol, because if word recognition or language comprehension isn't there, then we're not developing skilled readers. So this is a favorite of all of us. We love this one. This is Scarborough's Rope, which just takes the simple view of reading and puts it in a great graphic for us. So here's those 2 parts that we saw, that word recognition and the language comprehension. And we know that the importance of all of those coming together to make that skilled reader. When you hear about science of reading, maybe politically, you'll hear more of that focus on the phonics, the phonological awareness. But we know the importance of all these other pieces with comprehension, the background knowledge, the vocabulary, structured verbal reasoning. And we have resources. You have...
Dr. Cruz, sorry. Can you just make sure you're by the microphone? Just because if someone's listening or if they listen to the recording, they won't be able to hear you. Sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. Not that it's not good for you to show, but I just don't want people, if they take the time to listen, I don't want them to not be able to hear.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Ooh. Is that better? Those of you in the back and at home? Very good. So, the rope is a great visual representation of that simple view of reading. And the resources that we have in our classrooms build upon that language comprehension. Our Fontes of Fennell has so many pieces that build upon that. And then we have those other resources that build upon the word recognition and that decoding. So Dr. Seifert is going to share with you about the dyslexia. All right, so one of the big pieces of legislation that has to do with literacy is the dyslexia support laws. That's broken down into 4 main pieces. There's the screening and progress monitoring, communication with parents and guardians, the structured literacy and certification process, and then professional development. And you can see on the right-hand side, we have that broken down into pieces that are directly related to what we're doing here in the classrooms. So we have our Acadians testing. We have different pieces of family communication. We have our Wilson reading, the Tiered 3 support structure. This is program-based with the phonological coding research. And if you look into the International Dyslexia Association, this is approved by them. So that's one of the pieces that has to be approved
by this Dyslexia Association. And then lastly, our resources, which can be broken down into all of those different pieces with Scarborough's Road. So it's broken down very simplistically into all of those different pieces. This is the course content that is outlined by ODE for the dyslexia. All of our teachers for K through 3 have to they have to take all of these different modules. So you can see with Module 5 off to the right-hand side, there's a little star there. So all of our K through 3 teachers have completed Modules 1 through 5 already. And our kindergarten and first grade teachers, they have to have Modules 1 through 11 completed by the start of next school year. So those are the next pieces that our building principals are stepping in, and they're scheduling all of those different modules for the teachers to complete within schedules that will work within the building. If you look within the folder, you can see that we have 2 of the building schedules broken down. You can see there's kind of some color coding, and it was some complex scheduling in order to make all of that happen. But you can see there's different things that were factored into that, like the safety training that all of the different buildings have to have. And then we have some other professional development that has already been planned in that deals with some of the different resources that we're doing. So you can see there's some fancy footwork that took place to get all of that scheduled. And then if you look in the dyslexia guidebook, you can see it's probably about page 3 or 4. It has all of the professional development broken down by grade level or content area. So for example, if you're an intervention specialist, you have to the beginning of 2004, 2005 to have your professional development completed. So we have all of that planned out. I believe that was shared with you in some board notes already. So you can see we have all of that planned out, and we have all of those, the communications with parents and guardians that was in one of those pieces that's outlined in the guidebook. We have all of that all ready to go. So we're up to having all of the guidelines are all met for our district.
And we're meeting what the state required, correct? Because I know in some nearby district, they added on and added on and added on, and that caused quite a bit of controversy. But we're making sure we meet the state mandate, but we're not throwing all this extra stuff at our people, correct? Okay.
So we're fortunate because we have professional development days factored into our calendar, our academic calendar year, as well as those early release Fridays. So what we did is we took all of those times and all of the professional development that is required by the state of Ohio by the start of the school year, as well as anything that we had already funded and had allocated and our teachers were expecting to receive for professional development. We took all of that and we broke it down within all of those days that we have available to us, and we scheduled that out. So again, you can see the complexity of it. So we did that for each of our elementary buildings, and then each of the grade levels, and then each of the specific content areas that had something that had to be considered. Do you have any other questions about any of that? All right.
My bad. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about how we support our teachers' instructional decision making. So I will be talking to you today about student-centered coaching, our current literacy resources, our assessments that we have to guide instruction, and I'll touch a little more on the embedded professional development. So first we have the student-centered coaching. So This flyer that I have over there is something that I created to hand out to our staff so that they are familiarized with the concept of student-centered coaching and what it is about. So as you can see, it focuses on that student achievement. We collaborate with the teachers to select a standard and a specific learning target, and then we collaborate to co-plan and co-teach, and we measure that student growth for a pre-assessment and then a post-assessment at the end, so we can see that progress that the students make. So something that I wanted to just highlight a little bit in addition to my colleague Julie Halleck when she made the benefits of student-centered coaching. So something to just expand upon is that concept of collective teacher efficacy and how that's supported in student-centered coaching. So that's supported by creating that collaborative partnership centered around student data and achievement. So if you were to look up Hattie's effect size, you would see that collective teacher efficacy has the highest impact on student achievement out of over 250 different influences. So it's very, very powerful. Next, I just briefly wanted to touch on our current literacy resources. So these 3 resources were implemented this school year across all 6 elementary schools. Just a note that Fountas and Pinnell was rolled out to 2 of our elementary schools last year. So this is their 2nd year using that resource. The literacy specialists focus on these resources during our coaching to support our teachers and how to utilize them effectively in their classroom. And something that we are going to talk on a little more in a moment with my colleague Crystal is how we are fortunate enough to have these literacy resources in combination to work together to create that structured literacy classroom and meet all of those areas of Scarborough's reading rope. So as you can see, we have many assessments that we use to guide instruction. I'm just going to touch briefly on a few of them. So I really wanted to take time to point out the Tier 1 Dyslexia Screener of Acadians Reading K through 6. This is given kindergarten through 5th grade 3 times a year for benchmarking. It's also going to be utilized for progress monitoring more frequently for our students who need additional support. And Title I and EL teachers across the elementary buildings have just finished essential training to assess students. All 3 of the literacy specialists have participated in all trainings to become recognized by Acadians as official mentors. So next year, we have plans to train all general education teachers as well. The benchmark assessment system is aligned with the core instruction resource for Fountas and Pinnell. It guides teachers in making instructional decisions in forming their guided reading groups. Assessments are given at the end of the year as well as the beginning, but the end of the year, they're collected and provided for the next school year to help guide our teachers in where to start. And then for the Tier 2 Dyslexia Screeners, I just wanted to point out the Haggerty student assessments because that directly aligns with our Haggerty resource that's being utilized in our kindergarten through 2nd grade classrooms, as well as the Core Phonics Survey, which is used for students of all levels and grades to identify gaps in phonics to adjust instructional supports as needed.
I ask a question?
Yeah.
Of a benchmark assessment system, is the Tier 1 Dyslexia Screener? Is that what you're saying? I'm sorry.
So the Tier 1 Dyslexia Screener is the Acadians Reading K through 6. That's what we're using. That benchmark assessment system is something that's being utilized for the language comprehension reading rope. So you'll kind of see how that aligns when my colleague takes over.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Last but not least, we have embedded professional development opportunities. Dr. Seifert talked about this a little bit, about how we have time set aside in our schedule for those professional development days, the early release Fridays. But I just kind of wanted to go over exactly, like what this means. So embedded professional development isn't just the fact that we have regularly scheduled opportunities in our district calendar. It's that these professional development opportunities are truly grounded in the day-to-day instructional practices that our teachers need to be aware of to improve their students' learning. So something that we do is we ask for feedback from teachers after each professional development day, and that helps support our decision-making for future professional development. We also ask teachers what they need. So just speaking personally with something that I've done as a literacy specialist is I've given Google Forms and exit tickets after I've presented at staff meetings that just ask the teachers what they would like more support with so that I can plan future opportunities for like staff meetings and speed learnings that we do before the school day starts. I'm going to turn it over to Crystal, and she's going to show you a little bit more about what exactly is going on in our elementary schools.
Okay, so my name is Crystal Parnan. I'm the literacy coach at both Lincoln and Silver Lake. And today I just wanted to take a moment to kind of explain to you what's happening behind the scenes in literacy this year. Our teachers have been working really hard on with their new English language arts curriculum, and they're trying to really concentrate on creating effective instruction for our students. As you know, effective instruction is the foundation that sets the stage for developing readers. And so what does effective instruction mean? What does it look like? These are the three components that you do need in your effective instruction as an educator. The first one is explicit and systematic instruction. The explicit instruction is very clear, it's very direct. There is no room for wiggle. And it is going to be systematic in the respect that it is going to build upon previous skills to make sure that the students do attain and remember the information that is being presented to them. The teachers are actually using a gradual release model. It's pretty popular at the moment. It's a key term. So they're incorporating I do, we do, you do, where the teacher will actually model a set skill. Then she invites the students to participate in the set skill with the instructor, and then the students will then actually practice the skill on their own. So then they're going to take that ownership. Additionally, complex text sets is a great resource for our students. With Fontes and Pennell, we're really focusing on building background knowledge and vocabulary, the higher end of the reading group. And the picture on the left-hand side, that is books that are accessible for our fourth grade teachers in guided reading. That's just one grade level, one set of books. So we have hundreds of books that the teachers can and utilize during their instruction. And one of the most profound statements I continue to hear from the teachers, because I'm stationed in one of the book rooms, is how much the students love reading the variety of text. They're making those connections from genre to genre, or seeing the theme connect. So that's really an added bonus of it. And then the last one is the orthographic mapping. With the systematic and explicit instruction, we really need to make sure that our students are learning the sounds before they can put those sounds onto paper and connect them with print. So that is actually what's happening with our programs that we ended up adopting. Heggerty is one that is focused in our K-2 area, and the teachers are basically teaching the students to listen for sounds. There is no print exposed to them. It is truly sound-based, trying to identify the sounds in words, the individual, the smallest unit of sound, then we move on to larger chunks and rhymes. This is all auditory. It's done in a small group setting, meaning they're coming to the carpet, they're huddling around each other, they use hand movements to show that they recognize the sounds, they're adding and deleting phonemes on different parts of the word. It happens every day in our K-2 classrooms. It's only about 8 to 10 minutes, and then it could again appear in a possible Tier 2 instruction. So this is a snapshot of what it looks like. The top image is actually showing you what a lesson looks like for a teacher. So that's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and it explicitly states on the side what the teacher is supposed to say and how they model it and what the student says and what their response should be. So anybody can jump in and do a lesson within a matter of seconds. So we have a couple of kiddos there just participating in it. Our next program that our teachers are really working hard on, this is, I would say, again, one of the ones we're really trying to focus on, making sure our teachers are teaching with fidelity, is Foundations. Foundations is going to help our students apply those phonics skills, so when they are coming to those unknown words, they'll be able to use that information and then decode unknown words. And so that's going to be very pivotal when our second graders go to third grade and third grade goes to fourth, because they're going to be seeing those multisyllabic words. And if they don't have that phonics decoding skill, they're not going to be able to understand the meaning behind the word. So there's a lot of different activities built in. This is daily, again, for K-2. Our teachers are teaching this for 30 minutes a day, very multisensory. There's skywriting, there's finger tapping. So there's a lot of different techniques that are used to ensure that it's being cemented. So that's just a picture of a couple of kiddos participating. And then the last program that we're really working on is Fontes and Pennell. So Haggerty and Foundations, they are centered around that word recognition, whereas Fontes and Pennell is very heavy in language comprehension, because there are so many different ways the teachers are able to incorporate text. They have book club books, there's guided reading books, there's independent reading books, there's shared reading books, and then my favorite is the interactive read aloud. The interactive read aloud typically happens for about 10 to 15 minutes every day, and it's really the teacher's opportunity to share literature and enjoy it and just have a discussion, rather than, say, getting out a worksheet to make sure we have a connection. It's really teaching the students to enjoy reading. So these are the focuses of Fontes and Pennell, and you can see a variety of different activities. The one girl at the bottom left-hand corner, she's in a word work center, and then the teacher on the bottom right-hand corner, she's doing an interactive read-aloud with her fourth graders. And then the one added benefit of Fontes and Pennell is the emphasis on writing. It really is encouraging students to respond to text through writing, and teachers actually, one, model, but then two, respond to the students' writing so it's personalized and it keeps them motivated to want to continue to write. So this is what's happening in our actual classroom. And I will turn it over to Julie.
So we have a lot of things in place. That's pretty obvious, but how do we know if we're successful? And the main source of determining our success is our assessment data. So we use multiple, both quantitative and qualitative data sources to help drive instruction. We have conversations about the data at the building level, but this also occurs at grade level. So we do BLTs, the grade level TBT meetings, and then also at the district level. So, for example, looking at student-centered coaching data, we found, and this would be qualitative mixed with a little bit of quantitative, 86% of students met their standard-based goals set by the teacher at the beginning of the coaching cycle. So the teacher picks a goal at the beginning. That's what we work towards during our 6 weeks, and of that 86% of all those teachers and students that participated met the goal. 95% of students that participated showed growth in that particular area. This is an example of kindergarten Acadians data. So this shows the growth of all the kindergartners tested across the district. And the reason that we chose to show you tonight kindergarten is we kind of look at this group because they haven't had COVID. They haven't missed school. They have had instruction with our new resources since the beginning of this year. So we felt like this kind of embodies what we're working towards. The graph on the left, that half rainbow, the bottom number, 287, is the number of students that were assessed at the beginning of the year. And in that, the red and the yellow is below benchmark. So at the beginning of the year, we had 56% of our kindergartners that were below benchmark. And then the green and the blue is green is at and blue is above. At the beginning of the year, that was 44%. And then when you move to the middle of the year, you see that the below kids that are below benchmark, we're at 41%. So going from 56 to 41. And then the kids that are at and above benchmark have moved up to 59%. And we're expecting to continue to see this growth when we assess students at the end of the year. There's a handout in your packet that looks similar to this, and I put all of each of the grades so you can see the growth across all grade levels.
if you'd like more information about anything we've talked about tonight, about the state and things that are set forth through Ohio's dyslexia laws and how our district is meeting the needs of teachers through professional development, the links in the slideshow are a great place to go. That's it. Thank you so much for listening tonight and for all your support throughout the year. We really appreciate it. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I had a question.
Sure.
On the classrooms with the bookshelves and all the books that you have, when you talk about complex text sets, is that by reading levels, or is it by, are you teaching by themes or concepts so that kids can transfer what they know from literature to nonfiction and back again?
Yes.
Okay.
That's an excellent question. So kids are reading a variety of texts. What's really nice about Fontes and Pinnell is that it covers so many different, like, science and social studies topics, both in fiction and nonfiction. We also have geodes, which are decodable text, so going back to that word recognition part of things, which also covers science and social studies concepts. So I really feel like our new resources hit home with that very well, and they align really well to the Ohio standards for both social studies and science.
Thank you.
Sure.
Just following along with your example about kindergarten, and I appreciate that we went from 44 to 59, but then currently below is that 41%. So when we look at the 41% that's currently below in kindergarten, at what point do we assess them to determine if they need a Tier 2 intervention, a Tier 3 intervention? Is that something that we do in kindergarten? Like, how do we work with those kids that are at that 41% to bump them over, to bump up that 59%?
Exactly.
Can you talk more about that?
Sure. So Acadians is, we like to think of it like a thermometer. Like when you're not feeling well, you take your temperature, and that kind of confirms that you're not feeling well. That's kind of what Acadians is. It's a temperature check. So when we look at this data, and that's what we do district-wide, building-wide, and grade level-wise, we look at those students that are below the benchmark and how we need to intervene. And so sometimes, like I can give an example, like one of the schools I work at is Price. And so we saw that we had some 4th and 5th graders who had their oral reading fluency score in Acadians was low. They were below the benchmark. And so we did a phonics screener to see where their holes were. And it wasn't that they weren't reading. They were reading. They were just below where they needed to be. So some kids needed work with our controlled vowels. And once they were able to do that, we did those quick interventions, and then they were able to show growth. And it's the same thing with the kindergartners. So we, at any grade level, we look at those kids that are below the benchmark. We figure out doing a Tier 2 screener of some sort. We figure out where their needs are, and then we intervene. So there's all kinds of interventions in place, and that's where, when my colleagues talked about progress monitoring, that's what progress monitoring does. So instead of waiting till the next benchmark to see if it's working, you give this quick 60-second probe, and that tells you if they're making progress along the way.
And how often do we administer Acadians?
3 times a year.
And when is that?
So it's the beginning of the year. So this year we did it within the first 2.5 weeks of school. And then mid-year is usually January, after they come back from break. And then end of the year will be in May.
Okay. And then we assess. And obviously it's showing you the student level data. And then also classrooms of students as well.
Yes.
So that you could work if, there's a particular skill set perhaps that an educator maybe is struggling with getting across to a group of students. You can assess that and do that coaching as well.
Sure.
Because I know you've spoken to us about that coaching you do with those like mini lesson coachings with okay.
Yeah, exactly. And we try to structure it around specifically what the students need, where the students' needs are, but a lot of times that does, yes, it goes back to the educator and things that we can do in order to show growth, especially if it's a classroom, if it's a classroom-wide issue.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, because I think part of our support of your positions as literacy coaches isn't just that student part, but it's also to give that additional support to our educators as well. That our educators are well-trained professionals, but we're all not experts in everything.
Exactly.
And so we all sometimes need that extra little bump in whatever it is that we do, and that's part of what you do as well. So I appreciate that piece of what you do.
It's kind of that embedded professional development. That's like another level that Cuyahoga Falls has that I think is unique to our district. So.
And so where do you see this going? So going back to this kindergarten example, what do you see as a realistic best case scenario as we look at this cohort moving forward?
I don't feel like I can really, I don't have a crystal ball, but I can tell you that we have seen growth. This is what we were expecting to see. So we were very excited to see this. And when we see this growth and we see the things that are happening in our classrooms every day, we see, we do progress monitoring and we see all that's going on, we would expect that number, that percentage of students that are below grade level, so that 44% to go down even further.
Do we see any of our students struggle when they get to like the green or the blue? Do they usually stay there, or do they sometimes hit a rough patch and struggle?
They can, for the most part, though.
Once we get them there,
they're secure,
okay.
Yes, they usually do stay. Yes, okay. But the benchmark moves.
Yes.
So what we're assessing at the beginning of the year is different from what we're assessing at the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, to show that growth.
But once we get them on track, we're seeing success at keeping them on track. That's good to hear. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Sometimes that's a struggle with other assessments we see sometimes. So I appreciate hearing that as well.
So in third grade, we kind of had a slump there. And I just wondered if we know why or what was going on there. It seems all the other years, even though it's a little slower in third, fourth, fifth, they have improved, but the third grade kind of went down just a little.
Just a smidge.
Little.
Yes. Yeah. And, in talking, we've had conversations, building principals, talking to teachers. I mean, honestly, those are the kids that had the greatest effect of COVID. Because you're thinking about foundational skills, which are those skills kids need, that phonemic awareness and phonics that they get in those early years in kindergarten and first grade, and they weren't in school a whole lot. Okay. So, not to make excuses, but they're missing some of those things, and that's why when we have data like this, we can look and see what they're missing, and we're trying to fill those holes. But research also tells us that kids' brains are ready to learn those things at those ages. Now they're older, it takes us longer. It takes teachers longer to fill those holes and fill those gaps.
I wonder if we'll continue to see that just because we throw that extra science and social studies time in third grade, so they're not getting as much reading time as they were. So I wonder if maybe that's a natural thing we'll see. It'll be interesting to see in future years if that's a natural little slump we see, just because now they're doing the science and social studies that they weren't doing as much of. They're not spending as much time reading, so maybe it's almost like their mind's not thinking about reading as much.
And
so
it very well could be
that's a wonder that I have. I'll be interested to see.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go for it.
So our science and social studies instruction is literacy based.
Yeah.
So all of that content is taught through literacy. So the approach might be a little bit different, but it's still literacy based. When I think it was Julie spoke about geodes, if you remember when we introduced geodes, how that is our science and social studies content area instruction for our K and 1. Now we've added some resources in science for grade 2, and then in grade 3 we've added another layer of social studies instruction, but again, it's still literacy based. And it's not until 4th and 5th grade when our grade levels start to team, so there's more separation, and it's not quite as integrated. So in 4th and 5th grade, that's when we have that science instruction that might be for an hour, but the teachers use the philosophy of having half of that be literacy-based, and then the other half, if they need for it to be more focused just on science and not literacy-based, then that's what they try to do. But our 4th and 5th grade teachers use that philosophy that hour of instruction is really through literacy.
And so they are, I don't know exactly what, key concepts or themes they teach, but they're teaching around like gravity, say, and yet they'll be reading books of fiction and books that are nonfiction or articles and so on, all around that theme. So all the English language skills are taking place with the background knowledge that they need and the vocabulary instruction up front, and then you cycle so that they do have that transference.
It's like your former ELA teacher.
I just love this, and I just want to. I read this last week, but you all weren't here. Somebody put this. Julie put it together. So I just want to point out again. 86% of the students met the standards-based goal, and 95% showed growth in the targeted area. And some of the teachers' comments, which also I love. The students were able to see how published authors follow the same process that they followed. I like how we team taught, and we were able to assist children as they wrote. And since there were two of us, we could add detail to their writing. Before the coach came in, I dreaded writing. I didn't dread writing or teaching. I hated grading, but, and then the writing mini lessons book, which I think is so nice to have. So I just wanted to kind of read that again.
So you'll see come through that Fountas and Pinnell has published their 4th and 5th grade writing mini lesson book.
Okay.
So our 4th and 5th
Right.
grade teachers will get that this next year. So that's really exciting.
Yes. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
Any more questions, comments?
I just wanted to have a comment on just thank you for all that you do and the focus that you're having on literacy. And I know that I've spoken before to Ms. Seifert about my daughter's at Richardson, so she was part of the pilot last year. She's in 5th grade this year, and the growth that she had shown and the just love of reading that she started last year and has continued because of this has been amazing. And I can attest to the fact that she's reading all the time.
Yeah.
Come home, part of her homework is to read at night, and she's always like, I know, Mom. She goes, Mom, you don't understand how much I have to read and write at school. I read and write all the time. And I'm like, good. I'm glad to hear. So, out of the mouth of students. But that's her. I don't know if that's a compliment or complaint on her part.
We'll take it as a compliment.
Very much so. Wow. And then just the other thing I noticed, the fact that 56% of our kindergartners are coming in below benchmark, to me is just an alarm of how much we need to focus on early childhood education here in this district to curb that they're coming in behind where they need to be. So.
My final comment is I have a kindergarten and 1st grade nephews at Lincoln. I told them we were going to hear about the literacy presentation, and if they had any comments they wanted me to share about the literacy program, and they both wanted me to share. They love Baby Echo. When Baby Echo comes out, they get really excited. So they wanted to thank whoever brought Baby Echo in. They love the magnet boards. They wanted to, so just some kindergarten and 1st grade thoughts that they notice these things, they remember these things, and they appreciate these little things. They want, they said, Brendan, my 1st grade nephew, said, whoever brought those magnet boards, say thank you to that one. Make sure you say thank you to that person. So, from him to you, thank you for those. He appreciates that. So.
Baby Echo is a little owl puppet that comes with the Foundations program. So. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that.
Letter people. I
meet the letter people.
Did you?
Yeah.
So, thank you all. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And now, presentation number 5 is our social studies resources presentation. Dr. Cruz and Mrs. Dudone.
So here.
Props. Thank you. So
So as Mrs. Dudone is passing those out, review our agenda for tonight. So we're going to give you back on a timeline of what this process has been, give you an overview of the resources that have been collected, and then talk a little bit about budget, and then share the teachers' input and feedback. So the last time the district did a 6 through 12 social studies adoption was right here, 2003. So just a bit ago. So that was the last time they've had official resources purchased by the district in terms of a full textbook or text set. There have been other supplementals along the way, but
And some things have happened in the world.
just a few in the last 20 years. So yeah, just good to have some updated resources. So last year, the teachers were informed that we would start this process of adoption. And this fall, from September through December, there was a lot of work. We collaborated with Andrea Pat from the Summit ESC and did some work really exploring the standards, considering looking at the crosswalks and how the standards now, how they align with different resources, establishing our non-negotiables. So what were those things that the teachers really wanted to have in a resource, something that they knew that would benefit their students and their learning. So we established what those look-fors or non-negotiables were, and then we created a rubric around that, and also the rubric around some of those high-quality instructional materials, and looking at what it is that we needed for our instruction with social studies. So that was a lot in the fall. And then a lot of conversation on primary source documents and what they need in order to have those critical conversations and higher level thinking. So it was a lot of good professional time with our teachers then. And we wanted to do that before the bells and whistles of the presentations. We wanted them to have some grounded understanding of what to look for in a resource. Because we knew, after not having an updated resource for 20 years, this was going to be pretty awesome to see some of the features and the capacity of some of the different programs that are out there now. So several presentations happened in the winter time in January, February, and March, and then came back together to use that rubric to evaluate all 4 of the companies that were looked at. And then here we are now making the recommendation to you on those resources. So this slide highlights the selections that the team has made. You'll see for grade 6, they prefer TCI History Alive along with a supplement with Gallopade. 7th grade through the high school prefer the HMH, that Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. The HMH sounds familiar. That's the one that our ELA literacy, 6 through 12 literacy, just adopted this year. And then an updated resources with our AP courses for AP Psych and AP Economics. So that's an overview, and Mrs. Dudones is going to jump in and give you some more specifics.
Thanks. Again, thank you for having us here tonight. One thing I want to point out really quickly, if you look around November, something else that was important for us to talk about was there's a crosswalk between the ELA standards and the social studies standards. Social studies and science standards are actually in the ELA standards. And that was a change when we adopted Ohio's new standards. And those were some of the features that the teachers were excited about having embedded instead of having to create everything. So as Dr. Cruz said, grade 6 went with, or is hoping that we will go with, I should say, the TCI History Alive and Gallopade. This is from our 6th grade teachers. We met separately with them after our kind of final recommendation day because they really said, these other texts really just don't meet the needs of our students. Developmentally, instructionally, basically,
The difference between a 6th grade social studies class and 7 through 12 is 6th grade is very skills-based in understanding different, although they do learn about different areas of the world and the 4 different components, it's just a very different way of learning. Plus, they're 6th graders, and they're just adjusting to middle school, and they need to move around a little more, maybe. Not that our 7th through 12th graders don't need that type of learning, but not quite as much. And we had 6th grade students, the teachers actually let the students preview the materials, pulled them up, let them kind of play around in the student materials, and the students were excited, and they felt that the TCI was more interactive and engaging. So to me, that says a lot when the students are saying, no, this one actually makes me want to dig in and learn more. So the text that they are wanting from TCI is called The Ancient World, and we are proposing that we would get class sets just to have in the classroom, and then online access so that every student would be able to access from his or her Chromebook. And obviously we need teacher resources and online access. One nice thing that TCI has, and HMH has something similar, is in addition to this text, The Ancient World, our other online access will include Geography Alive, which they were really excited about. It has a lot of things that will help our 6th graders learn those skills. And then also History through 1750, which covers just a couple of the 6th grade standards that aren't covered in the Ancient World book. So the teachers will have online access to all those materials, even though we aren't buying 3 different sets of text for that. They are tied to the Ohio Standards. The major topics in 6th grade social studies, regions and people of the Eastern Hemisphere, geographic features, early history, cultural development, economic change. But when you look on the right side of the cover there, they're basically looking at the study of what makes a region, what is it about the people in that area, what products do they make, what cultural diversity is there, that sort of thing. And so they felt that TCI really did a good job of this. Dr. Cruz and I spoke to people in other districts and got their perspective, and they really felt that this was a great fit for their students because they really kind of dig in, and it's more of that exploratory learning which we like to have rather than, back when I was in school when my history teacher just wrote notes across the board and all we did was copy them and memorize this for the test. It's just not like that in any of our classrooms anymore. So they felt this met our needs. And then the other resource is Gallopade. You've seen this before. The benefit to Gallopade is that it is specifically written for Ohio. They have an Ohio version, a Florida version, a Tennessee, so on and so forth. And so when the teachers looked at, again, everything, they didn't see exactly what they needed, but this would be a continuation of what our 3rd through 5th grade students are using. And because it's designed around our Ohio standards, it's going to cover gaps in government, world religions, economics, and then some of the geography standards that aren't in TCI, they're not in HMH, they're not in any of the other ones that we looked at. And so we would not do class sets for this because they have consumable text, but we would, so this is something we'll be coming back for each year, or we can do a 3-year contract if we're allowed to pay yearly. And then they will have online access. Both of the resources have online assessments so that we can see where students are, judge their progress, that sort of thing in terms of their learning. Any questions about the 6th grade resources before I move on?
I have a question.
Sure.
I know we're not charging student fees right now. Maybe it's a historical question, but do we charge them a student fee for this because it's a consumable?
Currently or in general?
In general. I know currently we don't charge it. We're not charging fees.
That would be a decision that we could because it's a consumable, but we wouldn't
Do you know if we do
a
refund?
The cost
Okay,
of the consumable,
that's fine.
I think it's like $19.95.
No, I just want to make sure we're not.
It just adds up really quickly.
No,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're not charging them for a textbook. That's
No,
good.
we are not.
Okay,
No.
that was my only question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the 6th grade?
Yeah, I do. Since we're only doing class sets, are they given time to read the information in the textbook in class?
Well, the beauty of the online access is that it's the exact same book. We are our plan is to order enough books that for those students who prefer a paper copy, we can check them out. And our media specialists have been really good. Mrs. Gideon has, cataloged books in the library so that, Johnny needs this book today, he goes to the library, checks it out, and then he can take it back.
I'm just worried because we know that reading paper is much better than reading online. Research has been saying that more and more. And that just, so if they're given time to read in class and then we print things out, that's perfect. That was my worry. And Julie, are they reading also along with this? The English is embedded, so are they reading like novels, fiction, nonfiction type things as well?
In social studies?
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of that in the social studies class, but what we are hoping to do, especially if the HMH is approved here, Dr. Cruz and I actually met with our consultants from the ESC today, and our ELA teachers at the middle school are really excited that there's a more potential crossover between the two. So that's our goal.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Too. But kind of along the same question as you with the class set of books. For those students that maybe have spotty internet at their home, I know some of the programs you were able to download it and then take it home and it'd be on your book. Does this offer that as well?
You know what, HMH has that, and I have to check about TCI. I don't remember, but I can check on that.
But those students could have a book for the year.
If they know.
So in addition to a class set, we've looked at ordering 10 to 15 more
extras
that would be able, there could be a student who has that accommodation in a plan. And so they could just, or the internet is bad, they could just have that book at home. And just like we're finding, the teachers really said we don't have the need for every child to have a book like we used to, but they, like what you were saying, they really value that, having that in hand, and they have it so they could read from the text or take it home if they needed to. So I think
give the choice.
The choice is there, but a student could just have it.
And a student would know, like, hey, I can take one home if I need to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I had quoted for, I think, 10 extra per class section. Knowing that we might need to check some out, and that sometimes they
they don't come back.
They
don't come back.
And I had another question too. When we got the information ahead of time to kind of go over, and I was really confused why it was a 7 through 12, and then 6th grade was different, and I appreciate you kind of addressing that before I even asked. And I like that they asked the students, 6th grade students that previewed, and they got a chance to kind of give their input, which I think is great. Did the others, like other grade levels, also get input, and they just preferred, or how did that work out?
The other students or
other
the
grade
other
level
teachers? I had every social studies teacher that's a full-time teacher. We didn't do a committee this time because there's only 20 of them. So we did it all during the PD time, and unlike the ELA, where only some teachers.
But they all had all the resources. They had the online access, and they had the textbooks. Some teachers taught from them. Some teachers shared them with their kids. We specifically know that 6th grade did because they were wanting something different, and so they knew that they were kind of moving away from what the other recommendation was. So I think they were more invested in.
So they're the ones that had like a formal assessment by with the students.
Any of the students, as we had the different salespeople come in, I said to them, are the teachers allowed to teach from this? Are they able? And they all said yes, because they want us to try the product. So,
yeah, we didn't survey the kids.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to let the kids kind of see where
but they all
they
have
at.
access to it in their classrooms.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so for 7th through 12, again, the HMH, the Hoodminson Harcourt. And so 7th grade is called Ancient Civilizations, which you might be thinking, that's kind of the same name as the 6th grade. And there's a reason for that. One of them is that it's a different company. But this is going to cover world studies from 750 BC to 1600 AD. So this is where they talk about ancient Greece and ancient Rome and all of those things, all the way up to the first global age. And then this particular text will cover the Ohio standards. Those 4 strands, history, geography, government, and economics, are covered as it relates to the world from 750 BC to 1600 AD. Again, the HMH class sets, online access for students, all the teacher resources, and online access for them. Eighth grade is our beginnings, U.S. history beginnings to 1877, which is pretty typical. And they start with the study of European exploration and then those early years of the United States. And that goes from 1492 to 1877, exploration to Reconstruction. Again, it's going to cover those same 4 core standards with the geography and economics and so on, but this time more specific to the United States. And then in our district, we continue that with the 9th grade. So they move right from Reconstruction to when they get to the high school, and they pick up there. This is a required course in the 9th grade. We have been offering it at the middle school level, but this year is the last year for that because we changed some of our acceleration at the middle school level because we found that students weren't as prepared as we had hoped that they would be when they went to those upper level courses in the high school, and we wanted to set them up for success. And then the main thing I have in bold there, the key point with this is understanding how the events came to pass and what does that mean for today's citizens. That's the purpose of that 9th grade course. Again, the 8th grade course is kind of setting everything up, this is how it all started. And the 9th grade, they all include primary source documents. That was when we talked to the teachers about their non-negotiables. Like, could we get a book for primary source documents? And I said, well, every product is going to have that. Oh, well, what about some, maps? And yep, every product. But it's been so long since they had resources, and their books were so old I couldn't even order more to replace as we were running out of them. So it's all built in. There's a ton of writing and analysis built in the student platform. And again, it's going to be very similar to what they're doing in ELA. So the social studies teachers will kind of have that advantage.
Another question I had, I hate to keep doing, but is it diversity as well in here? So that
that was one of the things that was on our rubric. And the rubric has been shared, I know, in board notes.
I think you did. Yeah, I think we did get it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the teachers are very aware, and they were very careful to choose things that gave great perspectives.
Yes, that's okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about having online access as well, teacher resources, when you presented on the 612 literacy through HMH, and you gave some really great examples of the teacher resources. Mm-hmm. Is this similar to that where it provides like the differentiation resources?
Yes.
Okay, because that was like what really sold me on this company is that it provided that for the teacher instead of them having to go find things. I think that's so important that I think it's an obligation that we have as a district to provide those sorts of resources to our educators as opposed to expecting them to find all those. So
and that's actually one of the teacher comments. In your printed copy, it might not have all of the teacher comments because I printed some before and some after all the results finished coming in. The other thing, it's really hard to see. I'm going to step here just for a second. This little H is for the History Channel. And so HMH has a partnership with the History Channel. So there are lots of embedded video links and things like that teachers don't have to spend 3 hours going through and making sure, is this an appropriate video to watch?
Oh,
it's from the History Channel, it's embedded, and those are things that they update regularly. And they have some really cool, the word that's coming to mind is explorers, but it's people that are going around and they're on Twitter and they'll do FaceTimes or Zooms with classes and things like that, all about what's going on in the world today. So that's pretty cool.
Can I make a comment too?
Sure.
About the rubric, when I read through that, I don't know who put that together, but I thought it was a great idea. And
thank you. Yeah, Dr. Cruz.
It was. I like how that was put together. I don't know if we do that type of thing for all of.
We have been doing something similar for all of our adoptions. Yeah. So, but I give her the credit for. She sat with the teachers.
I synthesized all their ideas. It was. I mean, it was. It really had. It was. Yeah. It was. Just bringing it all together.
Yeah. The next. So our 10th graders typically take modern world history. Again, so this is world events from 1600 to the present, so it's a lot to get done in 1 year. Now, the state only requires a semester of world history. We require a year because that's a lot of information to cover. So, and you can kind of see on the right, those are just right out of the Ohio standards. But it's talking about global interdependence and how everything works together. And at the very bottom, again, analyzing primary and secondary sources from those multiple perspectives, and then a lot of the writing and the questions and things like that HMH has, their goal is to get the students to analyze and consider, how did this impact that and that sort of thing. And they really try to take it to that higher order thinking, not, what year did this happen? As I said on a Zoom today, I know in 1066 the Battle of Hastings because I memorized it in high school. I don't remember anything about the Battle of Hastings, but I know that it took place in 1066. What good does that do me? Nothing. I can't learn from that kind of history.
I know, you do.
It is a good fact.
You were able to say it tonight.
Trivia.
Yes.
Yeah.
I could win. I might win a trivia contest.
Yeah, you got to reach out to that teacher and be like, look at me now.
Yeah. Look at me now. She's still there, actually, despite my age. So the U.S. government text. U.S. government is a semester course here. We will be offsetting that with our financial literacy, which we've talked about previously is going to be through junior achievement, which is free, and we like free. The online access, we will drop students at the end of the first semester from the online access and then add the new students at the beginning of the next semester. So it's more of a seat license. So we only have to pay for half of the online access, even though all of our students are required to take American government. Again, this also has an end-of-course assessment.
Before you get to the electives that I looked at, I just think really important too with all of this is that all these courses that have state assessments, as we talk about our graduation rate, and it ties into all these other things, and you talk about we're giving our teachers and our students resources from 20 years ago to be taught from, and to then take a test that determines their eligibility to graduate. So when we talk about all these other things that we as a district are trying to do, this hopefully will have an impact on them as well, because I think we can't minimize the impact that all of these decisions have, because it's not in a silo,
Right.
And when we look at those, and you've presented before on these end-of-course assessments and all of the work that you in particular have done, to try to help students with that and to help our educators, but it boggles my mind. But I'm glad we're where we are. I'm thankful to the community for providing resources so we can be where we are to provide needed resources to our students and staff.
Definitely, and these resources are being paid for. That is coming up a little bit later, but they are being paid for with emergency levy funds, so we're definitely grateful to the community for that. And then for our elective courses, we are getting an updated psychology textbook. And then to the right, I just put a snapshot so you could see just some of the cool things that they have with the psychology textbook. They have it's just not what we had when we were growing up, or what our students have right now, because that's
I didn't have a textbook when I took this class.
But they call them quick labs. They have some simulations, just all sorts of different things that kids can do to get them engaged again instead of just sitting and taking notes. So they're excited about that. That is also a semester course. Sociology, same thing. It's another elective, but it's one that's somewhat popular with our students in terms of filling that other semester. I do know that even students who have met their 3 credits will often take those psychology and sociology courses. And it gives them a good background if they're planning on going to college or university, because you usually take those as part of your core there. So just a little background information. And then last year in our program of studies, we added, we called it the Black Experience, and as you know, we have renamed that. And so this African American history text, this is actually a consumable text, like a workbook similar to our ELA. So students will get that every year for the life of the adoption. And then the online access and the teacher resources. Again, that's an elective course. I just gave you 2 snapshots of 2 of the different chapters so you could see that they're kind of running the gamut there. And then Mrs. Curtin was very, very impressed with this text. We saw a few from a few different companies, and this is the one that she really felt would best meet the needs of the course. There we go. And then we are updating 2 of our AP texts. Our AP Psychology, which actually won't even be out until October, but we're able to pre-order it. The 4th edition. They said, well, you could get the 3rd edition and then get the 4th edition in October. And I didn't really understand the purpose of that, so Miss Curtin said we'll just stick with the second edition and move to the fourth when we get there. And then the economics book is actually used for micro and macroeconomics, which are two different AP courses that we offer. I mentioned earlier the budget. So again, the emergency levy passed in 2017. When I sent out the funds, Dr. Selico said, boy, that's a lot of money. And I said, I'm actually super excited because we sat in 2015, 2016 and said, how much money will we need 6 years from now to adopt social studies text? And we're coming in under budget. So I feel pretty good about that. The quotes that you have seen include the TCI, all of the HMH. Those are 6-year packages. And then, as I mentioned, the Gallup aid will be an annual cost. And then these are just some of the things. So Dr. Cruz and I just created just a quick survey to get teachers' input just to share with you. Several of them wanted to be here tonight, and they had obligations with their families or children, and they couldn't come. So 100% of them said that they either strongly agreed or agreed that their voice was heard during the process, that they felt the input was being taken into consideration, and they are definitely excited to use the resources.
I just want to say, we've done surveys of teachers before, and they are very willing to be honest with us. So
yes.
If you got 100%, that is true 100% because they are willing to be honest and provide true feedback. So I trust that 100% if they gave it to you.
I think they're ready for me to stop emailing them. Would you please stop telling me there's more resources in the social studies office? These are just some quotes from the middle school teachers. Taking time to read those. They're excited about what you were just talking about, that intervention and enrichment. It's stuff, the ideas are there. They might not all be perfect, but it's giving them a place to start. There are interactive maps, which is great when you're teaching history. There are some virtual field trips that are available.
So is that like the virtual reality thing?
They don't have to wear the glasses.
Okay.
It takes them it's like a video, but then it takes them here, there,
okay. Because that is so cool.
But they could use them.
I know.
They could. Well, and some of them do work with Mr. Orris or Ms. Nicholson, and they do that in their classes.
That would be great.
And then, again, they're excited about the lesson plans. They're excited about the assessments, and they're excited to have a common reference point so that as we're planning and we're merging into a new building, everybody's going to be on the same page. And what they've been doing because of our lack of resources is every man for himself, and I'll share with you if I remember because my brain is so overloaded. And then the high school teachers, again, they're excited about the similar things. They're excited because the current events, so the online portions of HMH, those continue to update in terms of current events. Other questions?
Well, I think it also allows them to, because they don't have to struggle to constantly find those resources, because we're actually finally providing them resources, they can now apply current events to what they're teaching. And I know that always gets kids excited in social studies is when, something's happening, you can tie it into what happened in 400 BCE.
Right.
And, make those connections for kids. And they'll kind of have a little bit more time to do that, hopefully, because we aren't putting that stress of constantly trying to find ways to teach things because we're not. Reality is we weren't really providing them resources because it's hard to say that a 20-year-old textbook is really a valid resource in which to teach from.
Yeah, one of the teachers opened up the sample text and said, "Oh, look, it's past Nixon." We've had a couple presidents since then.
Oh my goodness.
But to Ms. White's about diversity, in terms of the perspective of history, now I understand how textbooks come up, through Texas and all that, and I understand, but do we feel that it's do we think that our students will find themselves in the history?
I believe they will. I mean, I will be honest and say, the one area where I might be concerned is that we do have, a large Bhutanese or Nepali population. They might not be as represented percentage-wise in the books, but the teachers really felt that there was a lot of diversity, especially in the writing prompts, because a lot of the writing prompts are asking about those different perspectives.
And I think in all of what we do, and when we went through 612 as well, I think when students can see themselves in what they're learning, that helps them find passion for it. And I appreciate the work that you do in trying to facilitate those conversations. So thank you.
Because there were, like back in ancient Greece, there were actually females that were philosophers, and I had to go to the library and get books on my own. Just things, I think that's important.
Yeah, they did look at that.
Good. I'm glad.
And they were, and I will tell you, the 712 team was unanimous, and like there was no, I said to them, Dr. Cruz and I can make this decision, but we don't want to make the decision. We really want you to, look carefully. And they said, well, do we even have to review the other texts? I said, well, yeah, you have to you have to go through and see before you just, willy-nilly. So.
Yeah, I was guest speaking in Mrs. Curtin's class, and I went, this psychology book was new when I was a freshman, which dates myself. But I was like, I remember how excited we were then, but it's like sad to see it here. And she goes, well, I'm sad to see it here too. But she shared with me about the process and how excited she was, because she teaches a lot of electives, so she had a lot of extra work to do in finding that. If board members or people wanted to view these resources in between now and when we adopt these, who should they contact, or where would these resources be?
That's a great question. So you do have access to all the online resources. Those have been shared. If you want to see the hard copies, you can just contact the building principals, and they'll connect you with the right teachers to get you the hard copy samples. We received probably 70 boxes of samples, so I don't want you to dig through those, because most of them are, they're not all from HMH. So, but the principals are happy to help you.
You were lucky you had a psych book.
I know, right?
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Probably the first time.
I didn't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Clap for that. Item E, Treasurer CFO's business consent agenda. Ms. Stoikoi.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve all items listed in the Treasurer's consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just a couple of minutes, and then the donations, I'd just like to point out. There was just a couple of them for Preston, and then a wrestling fundraiser, but always appreciated. We like to highlight them. I know there's more coming in. I get stuff every day from staff and outside community about donations, so I want to thank everybody for those.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Thank you. Item F, Treasurer CFO's business. Ms. Stoikoi.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend the Board of Education approve the February 2023 investment schedule and monthly spending reports.
So moved. Second.
Ms. Stoikoi.
Yeah. Real quick, we'll start with interest.
I have a question. When you do this, is there a way to switch it to landscape so it's easier to read? The interest?
Yeah.
Because it's like super tiny. If you like.
Not opening up like that.
Oh, yeah.
I can see what I can do.
That's my only question. Look.
It's on paper? Yes, it is paper. I'll talk to us.
Thank you.
We had another good month, not as good as December or January, but we had some good movement again. Some of the differences in those last couple months in the construction funds are really just due to maturity of some of those items that we have in there. They're more long-term than our general fund investments at Star Ohio, which is more like money market stuff. Those ones are tied up, and so for longer periods of time, and so really the timing of when those mature is kind of dictates what interest we get that month. But obviously, as I've said before, the rates are continuing to creep up, and so we've been able to lock in some of those going forward, which is good. General fund,
On the interest, still nothing from Huntington. They're holding out still.
Yeah, they're holding out still.
Okay.
We keep playing back and forth, so I haven't had a chance. I'll see Tony from Huntington here soon in person, so if he does not get back to me with that, then I'll just have to accost him in person with that. The general fund, obviously, as I've mentioned many times, this is where we start receiving our advances from the county. So we got a little under $12 million in February. Expenses were around 4.1, which is very similar to 2021. As I said, kind of the differences in January and February between this year and last year is that preschool payment, which is pretty large. It's a half-year payment. It's right around $500,000. So that's why it seems significant. It's really just the timing of when that gets paid. So obviously positive result of operations of revenue over expenditures of 7.5, and then we ended February just slightly under 24 million, which is about $1.5 million better than we were last year at this time. And then we can touch on food service real quick. The good news is there's Chef Bill's a celebrity, #1, talking about everything. I said pretty soon you're going to be able to go on the road and just do like speaking engagements across the country. But the good news is with all of that and his hard work put into that, I know there are conversations at the state level about free lunches for all for Ohio, and fingers crossed, hopefully that is something that moves forward for us, because that really not only benefited us as food service, but it benefited the students. I think we saw a lot of positives out of that. So you can see revenues, they're pretty much trucking right along there. Expenditures are really kind of right in line. Revenues are in line. It's hard to look once you start hitting this February, March, April with the past couple years, just because some of it was free, some of it was still not free, but maybe we weren't open completely. We might have been a hybrid, so it's kind of hard to gauge from year to year. This year is more typical because we are back to just getting reimbursed for those free and reduced students that qualify. So what you're looking at for 2023 is more normal than the past couple years. So they sit at about 715,000. You can see where we were 2 years ago at this time, and we did the advance right around this time in the spring of 21 in order to help them out. So they've been able to hold pretty steady there. I think those are really the major ones.
And then we got money from the state share again.
Yeah, we can look. So if you want to look at the state share cash flow, we got money from that. So as I mentioned before, we get quarterly drawdowns for the state portion of the revenue. So that 37% from the building project. Each month, really, but each quarter we're required to report kind of a recap of that quarter and what we've spent and how much is charged to the state, and then they kind of look at that and adjust their drawdowns. They have a schedule for us of, okay, this quarter we're going to give you this and that. They kind of look at that and adjust that depending on what we've actually spent, and kind of say, okay, here's this plus enough that we think will get you through the next quarter, and that. So we did receive a little over $1 million in February. Some of that is interest, because it is required that we keep that money is separate in one of our Star Ohio accounts, and the state obviously wants the interest on their money if we are holding it in an account like that. We will be able to use that towards the project, but it is the state's money still, so it'll be part of that. So you can see the question of whether we were, because we were a little negative in January. Now, if we're now we're a little over $1 million to the positive going forward for this next quarter, and as we process everything, we'll see another one again in May once the quarter closes.
Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, please call the roll.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Ms. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye. Thank you. Item 2 is your comments.
Just real brief, we're in budget season all over the place. Obviously, the biennium budget at the state and all of their other different bills that they've got going on between the Senate and the House. So there are a lot of important and things that will affect us as far as House Bill 1 and property taxes and how they want to adjust that. Obviously, the foundation, the state school funding formula that we had the last 2 years as part of the governor's biennium state budget. How and what all those details are, as I've said, are yet to be determined. This process will continue through the end of June, beginning of July, and usually July 1st at the last minute is when we'll know everything for sure. And even then, not sure everyone will know everything for sure, but it'll be done because
2 years ago they gave themselves an extension.
This is true. Here in district, we are starting that process for next year. I'm finishing that up and hope to send those out to the buildings and the departments by the end of this week to get them started for the fiscal 23-24 school year there. So we're starting to turn the page on a lot of things and look into next year. It becomes kind of the busy time in my office to transition both not only the staff with salaries and contracts, and of course we're in negotiations, so that is also something that can't really plan ahead for right now because we don't know what those things are going to be. So I'm just hoping for not a year like before when one of my payroll people got COVID right after we were ratified, and we kind of had to do a lot of work. So right before the holidays there. So I'm hoping for smoother sailing this time around, but we will be busy with all of that.
Thank you. On to item G, Superintendent CO's business consent agenda. Dr. Selko.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve all the items listed in the superintendent's consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Comments? If the board's okay, I'll let Dr. Selko go first.
Well, no, I think we'll just skip it. I don't think I have anything important under mine. Oh, there are people waiting for this moment. Oh, okay. Perhaps I should make some comments. All right. A few things. As you see, there's a long list here. But one I wanted to point out, just for people in the audience and who are listening, some of the, you've been seeing a lot of job descriptions come through. And, I want people to know that that's for reorganization purposes. These are not all new positions. Many of them are just being tweaked, updated, etc. Bless you. Some are new positions, but just wanted to clarify that in case anyone had any questions. A lot of it's just semantics and updates to some of those positions or change in titles of jobs. The other point I wanted one thing I wanted to point out is the TransFinder contract that you'll see there. Again, for the public's knowledge, I know that you're updated on it, but it's a routing technology software, and it's going to continue to update our maps for our transportation department. And what's really great about it, they have the zonar tracking that will allow our buses. We'll have GPS on those buses now. We will know where they are. We can track their speed, etc. And then the great feature for parents is the Stop Finder, and that is where they will be updated of delays and updates as to the time in which their child's bus is coming in. I know I would appreciate that, so I'm sure parents will look forward to that if you should so approve that. And then the last couple things just are pertaining to some new appointments that I'd like to take a moment to tell you about. First, we have our head football coach is here this evening. If again, the Board votes to approve that. Mr. Kevin Pask is here. He's a teacher at the high school. Mr. Johnson has stayed around to help introduce him perhaps after the vote. We would have you come forward and just say a few things. And then 3 other folks that I wanted to make some recommendations on. I just want to tell you briefly about. First, we have Mr. Kenneth Elder. I'm making the recommendation to you this evening that he serve as our Director of Student Services. Unfortunately, his father is very ill, and he is with him this evening, and so our thoughts are with him, but he will certainly come once I think he figures out what's happening with his father. He will be here at the next meeting, hopefully. But Kenneth he has received his degree, his bachelor's degree from Cleveland State University, and a master's in curriculum instruction from the University of Phoenix. He has a unique background in that he is trained as a school social worker and was a treatment specialist for Applewood and a child care worker is how he started his career, and then shifted over to the schools where he served as a dean of students. He was an assistant principal, he was a principal, and then he was the Director of Student Services for Bedford City Schools, and then he currently is in the capacity of a Director of Compliance in Cleveland Heights University Heights. So we're looking forward to welcoming him, and again, you will have a chance to meet him. Next, we have in the audience, we have Miss Julie Dudones is here. You had a presentation from her. So Julie is, to tell you a little bit about her, she has got her bachelor's in elementary education, 1 through 8, her master's in elementary education, and then an EDS in educational administration. Julie has been with us quite some time, it looks like since 1994. Teacher and classroom technology integration specialist. I believe spent some time in Gifted as well, Gifted Education, and has served as our coordinator of 612 curriculum instruction and Gifted and data and a whole bunch of testing. That's what she's doing now, her OST, that's her world, but since 2015. And so making the recommendation for Julie to be our curriculum coordinator for K through 12 and working with Mrs. Hausman in the curriculum department. So there's one recommendation. And also, finally, we have Ms. Bogdan, who I'm making the recommendation to be our Director of Human Resources. Ms. Bogdan has received her bachelor's in psychology. I'm surprised to read that. I didn't know that. And her master's in educational administration from the University of Akron. She was a social studies teacher with us, among many other roles. I learned very unique in other small districts that she was with. But in Cuyahoga Falls, served as a social studies teacher in 2003 to 2005. Then became assistant principal, and then principal finally at the high school from 2013 to the present. And I know she is very eager to try something different, and understandably so. I know being a building principal for a number of years, there came a time when I was ready for the next step, and I believe she is. And while there will be a learning curve, is up to the challenge, and really I know she's looking forward to the change. And so with that, those are my 3 recommendations.
Thank you. Or comment?
Congratulations, everyone.
They need your vote
After
still,
you
Ms.
vote.
White.
You asked for comments. I'm just,
Any more comments on board?
I don't want to jump the gun either.
I know, but
On a different note, I did want to comment on you comment on the TransFinder contract, which I'm really excited about, and Mrs. Johnson and the transportation department has spent so much time trying to make sure that software works before we spend money on it, and I really appreciate the amount of effort and time that she and her department have spent on that software, making sure it will work for our families and for our bus drivers before she brought that to the board. She is a gem in our school district. We can't thank her enough. On number 11, the SEI partnership agreement, just because this is a hot topic in the state of Ohio about student data. So at agenda review, I spoke with Mr. Hutch about this, and I think everybody on the board knows that Mr. Hutch is really passionate about student data, and so I just spoke with him. He's comfortable with this. As we know, he has such a passion for this. If he's comfortable about this, I trust him on that. And Dr. Selka also had an attorney review it just to make sure, because anything with student data, we want to just be double, triple sure. So I just want our community to know that how seriously we take the confidentiality of student data and how much effort we put into any time that we would share that. And then item 14, payment in lieu of transportation. This is something we talked about down in Columbus yesterday, and I think it's really important to point out because the state of Ohio requires us to pay when we are unable or it's unreasonable for us to impractical or unreasonable for us to transport via busing a student to a private parochial, charter, private non-charter, there's so many different words for it these days, they keep coming up with new ones, to their school. If they fill out a form by a certain deadline, we have to pay for that. They used to subsidize part of this. They took that subsidy away. Part of the rationale for them requiring us to either provide transportation or provide this money was because the state subsidized our purchase of school buses. That was part of their rationale if you ask them. Well, guess what the state is no longer doing in the new budget? Subsidizing the purchase of school buses. But they're still going to continue to require us to either transport or pay for the transportation, and at the same time trying to expand the voucher program, which means we will be spending either more money on these pilot funds or more money on busing these children at the same time that they are also taking away the busing subsidies that they were previously giving to us. So I just think that's important to mention as well, because it's going to make a huge impact on districts across the state of Ohio because they're taking funding away, and then part of their rationale about vouchers is it's not hurting the districts because it's not money we're receiving, which is baloney, but this is hurting districts because this is money out of the pockets that our local taxpayers are paying. So that aside, I want to just preemptively congratulate some wonderful people. Miss Bogdan was my freshman humanities teacher, and to go from the nerdy kid who was journaling in her class to now she'll be our human resources director very shortly when we vote on that, and to get to sit in meetings and work with her, it's really going to be exciting and a full picture, and I really look forward to that. And Mrs. Dudones, we're happy to keep your expertise, and I know Ms. Hausman's happy to be able to continue to pick your brain. And Mr. Pask, I only have one thing against you. It's that you graduated a year too late. 2008 was the better year. But I think you're going to do a phenomenal job, and Kenny King wants you to know that he expects a phone call. Stops by my office at work every day, and I have his card, and he signed a piece of paper, and I forgot to bring it tonight. He's going to yell at me. But he wants to know when the meeting is because he needs to make sure that your coaching styles don't conflict with one another. So I just wanted you to know that because I promised him I'd let you know. So that's my commitment to him. Anyone else? Please call the roll.
Ms. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Thank you. If you want to invite
Congratulations.
Mr. Johnson, do you want to come up and talk about Mr. Pass?
Yeah, I'll do it real quick. I know we're all hungry.
We'll invite him on to come speak. Yeah. He's going to do Mr. Pass.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate Allie and Julie. Both of you have earned and deserved those positions, and I'm happy for both of you. It's an honor for me to introduce now the new head coach of the Black Tiger football program, and that is Coach Kevin Pask. Coach Pask, if you could just come up here and stand so everybody gets to see. Kevin is a 2011 graduate of Cuyahoga Falls High School. He earned his bachelor's degree from Walsh University, where he also played 4 years for the football team at Walsh. He currently is an intervention specialist here at Cuyahoga Falls High School. Not only is Kevin going to be an excellent football coach, he's one of our better teachers. He's one of our best teachers. And I think that goes hand in hand. If you can teach, you can coach. He puts in a ton of time I know he's super excited. I know all of us here are super excited to have him. We can't wait to see what he does for the football program. So with that, if he wants to say a couple words, that would be great.
Thank you. I just want to really thank the board, Dr. C, Kenny, all the administration at Cuyahoga Falls High School that have been such a help, not only in just my transition back to Falls, but with this whole coaching process. I couldn't be more excited. I truly love Cuyahoga Falls. I love being a Black Tiger. It's meant the world to me, and being able to give back to this community and these kids that for so long, that's just a passion of mine and something that I'm super excited to continue to do. So I won't take any more time. I'll save the speeches for when we start winning some more football games. Thank you guys again.
Love it. All right.
Mrs. Dudowns, did you want to say anything? Yeah, why not?
I already have my turn. No, I do. I want to say thank you to the board and to Mrs. Hausman and Dr. Salvo. I've been here for almost 30 years, and I hope to retire here in 6 years.
Miss Bogdan, please.
Oh, boy.
I was like, she's not going to say no.
So for about thank you. I love flowers. It's very nice of you. Thank you. That goes there. So for, 20 years, Charlene says, where are you going? I said, I'm going to the board meeting. And she, what do you do there? So now you know, Charlene. That's what we do at the board meeting. But what Dr. Selico mentioned, I've been honored for the last 20 years to be in this district and walk the halls of these falls, halls of the falls. And I have grown professionally and personally. I get a little bit emotional because this has been my home for 20 years. And I think of all the things that I've gone through with the staff and the students. We've gone through death. We've gone through marriages. Tommy DeFrancisco, all you have to do to make him happy right now is say, how's Luca? So, somebody I've known for 20 years is now a grandfather. Been through a lot, and I've grown so much through those experiences. It's really easy to get energized when you're in this high school. We're in good hands. Spend a week with these students. Our future is really bright. They're so much fun to be around. They challenge you all the time. They want to argue about things, and that's just exciting. It's exciting to be around. And then you get to walk through the halls and just be energized by the educators and the support staff that are here. All you have to do is walk down and see Mrs. Culver teaching second period. If he doesn't bring tears to your eyes, there's something wrong with you. Or you peek down the 400s and there's Mr. Salswimmer creating something in conceptual physics and shooting things around. Not shooting, that's a bad word to use, but it just fills you up, and then you peek in and Mrs. Stedman's doing some kind of chemistry equation that in 20 years I can't figure out still. Or you see the Steves outside, growing and harvesting things. Or you watch Mrs. Rogers having such great conversations about novels. That's just so inspiring. And it's or Mrs. Shannon, answering 5 phones at the same time. So I've appreciated my time here. I thank Dr. Selico for having faith in me and recommending me, and then the board for approving me. Thank you very much. I'm going to tackle this job like I tackle everything. I'm going to do it with hard work, sweat, and tears. And I just feel fortunate to be able to continue to serve this community and this district in a new role. And I get to do it with somebody that I've known. We went into administration at the same year, I think, under the guidance, I guess you could say, of Mrs. McClure. And that warms my heart. So thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, that's it.
Oh, man, I know.
We're going to collect ourselves for a moment, I think, before we move on. Okay. Item H, the superintendent CEO's business. Dr. Selico, your comments.
All right, I know we're getting late, so I have a couple things, and I'm going to let you know that when I'm done speaking with my updates, if our team would like to go, it's been a long night, I understand. We won't be offended. You made it through the best part. Christy might be sad, but all right. So a couple things that just wanted to recap for the board. We had our safety assemblies the other day, and just went extremely well at both the middle schools and the high schools. I thank the principals for making those accommodations and getting everyone in and out. For those that don't know, we had an officer, our police chief, FBI agents, a prosecuting attorney, and Judge Coates from Stowe Court all come and speak to our children about social media threats was the big one, because we are having so many of them, and not just here in Cuyahoga Falls, but across the state and across the nation, as you know, with the swatting and all these other things that are happening. So I think it was really impactful. You could hear a pin drop in the middle schools, which is the way I wanted it and set it up to be, and I was hoping that that would work. So I still have the touch of, after being a principal for all those years, scaring kids into paying attention. Just kidding. It was the attempt, but they were actually a very attentive audience. We invited parents in. There were about 10 parents across the district that came, which I thought was great, and said in front of them what I would have said, without them there. And parents were actually grateful that we did that. So hoping that will curb some of the behaviors that we're seeing around the social media threats. Also, just a couple other things I want to thank Dr. Cruz and Dr. Siefer's not here, and Ms. Dudones for your presentation this evening. Thank the literacy coaches, please, on my behalf. I do know that a lot of time has gone into, especially that dyslexia planning. It's been a nightmare trying to find the time to make those 18 hours work. It's 18, I think, hours of PD, so we've been really trying to be creative. So I do appreciate their work and all of that, and the social studies adoption all the time, and ensuring that teacher input, teacher voices were heard in that process. So I'm appreciative to hear that the 100% of people felt that way. So excellent, job well done. And we're working on the math adoption as well, but as I mentioned to the board, postponing that. But again, similar process, and hearing the teachers' voices and principals. And one of the feedback that I received was to hit the pause button. And so I'm going to grant that, and also recommend that we just take a little more time to do that. Teachers in elementary school have been learning quite a lot of new programs, and I think we need to wait and listen to them. Lastly, again, just a thank you. Surprised me, even though I asked not to have it, but that was quite, as I mentioned, humbling, and surprised that you'd get Morgan on camera, because she's my shy one. Those are my Suits Troops kids. I'll see them tomorrow and harass them at lunch. We're having tomorrow. But yeah, it's been a joy working with them, and I'm just very grateful for all of you. So I just want you to know that. I'm grateful for my team as well. So thank you. Honestly, I can't say it enough.
Thank you. Okay. Item I is board business. Board business. Sorry. Number 1 is the 2023 COPS authorization. It is recommended the Board of Education approve and authorize a ground lease and lease purchase agreement and related documents providing for the construction, enlarging, furnishing, and equipping, and the lease and eventual acquisition of facilities and improvements, including for the future middle/high school for school district purposes, authorizing the completion, use, and distribution of an official statement and any and all other necessary disclosure documents relating thereto, and authorizing and approving other related matters.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Doikoy?
Yeah. Just a couple things about this, because I know it looks, obviously there's a lot of language, there's a lot of legalese in this, and there's what appears to be one large number. So a couple things. This is not an agreement that locks us into anything right now. What this document does is gives us the authorization to move forward with a COPS agreement up to a certain amount. So it gives us basically a parameter moving forward of kind of where we need to be, where we can be. We haven't gone out. The official statement has not gone out. None of those things have happened yet. One of the reasons for this and this authorization is, as you know, we have our GMP session on Friday. And so that our guaranteed maximum pricing with, the Hammond and TDA and all of them. And so what this does for us is sets a parameter of kind of like, hey, here's where we can be. Obviously, we've looked at other alternative solutions, and some have come to fruition, and some have not. We've done a lot of value engineering on the project. We, although not official, should hopefully receive some help from OFCC. We did the different bid packages. Unfortunately, just the way the picture is lining up with all of those, it is still going to be necessary for us to take out some portion of money in debt in order to cover the total cost of this project. Another thing included in this number is also capitalized interest. And so if you remember on our original bonds, and we kind of talked about this, we had some capitalized interest, and then that interest was used to make the first few debt payments larger on the bonds originally. What this does is because this is something obviously that we had not planned for previous to this, or without knowing the numbers and without going out to bid. And so what this does is it gives us some of that capitalized interest that then we can use to make those first couple debt service payments, and gives us some time to work it into the budget instead of having to immediately work it in within the next 6 months to a year, or whenever that first date would be. So that up to amount, that 19.5, includes that capitalized interest. And so that will be used to make those first couple payments. We've obviously had discussions about some of the buildings and properties, and are continuing to work on that. Going forward, that is something that I've made sure that when we go to approve any of these things that we're not going to have penalties for if we were to sell and have some money that we would be able to prepay, for instance, on this on these COPs on this debt service schedule. So really, all this does is kind of gives us that authorization to go ahead and put the official statement out to potential buyers of these, and kind of move forward through the process similar to the bonds with everything. There will be others when we come to. We're obviously not going to go up to that amount if we don't have to in this situation. And so once we have all those figures, there will be another approval of that actual once everything is finalized and what those numbers are and what that debt service looks like and everything like that. But unfortunately, as I'm sure many people are also feeling in their personal lives, just the combination of inflation and the predicament we were in when we passed the bond issue to now, and OFCC kind of halting everything, and obviously has caused us and some other school districts some issues. As a matter of fact, Kent Cashel, who is from RBC, our underwriter, called me just this afternoon and said, we're presenting at my OASBO annual conference about these kinds of agreements and how they affect and how people are working with it, trying to be within their building construction. And they want a treasurer or business manager to be with us. Do you want to do it? He's like, there's pretty much no one else that would be able to speak better to it right now. He's like, because you guys are just in, you just got caught in the worst kind of timing situation with a lot of this. And we did, unfortunately. And while some of those things, as I mentioned last week, benefited the community as far as total payback of those bonds and the interest that was with it, we've had some other issues where it has not been in our favor, unfortunately.
So we didn't get the GMP yet.
Mm-mm.
Okay. And so, but we can go ahead and do this now? I thought we were going to wait.
So this just gives us authorization to then move forward and like send out any necessary. It gives like RBC and our legal and our team basically the okay then to move forward with the process. And then once that is, there will be something else that comes back to the board for approval once that process is complete. But part of this is then we have a basically that parameter of this is what we're saying when we go into that GMP.
Okay.
To kind of say, here's what we can do, and maybe we need to make some other. It's looking to be more would be the only case where we say, hey, we're not authorized to do that.
Okay. I just thought we weren't going to do this until after we knew the GMP.
And we're not going to move forward with saying, like, we're not just going to go out and say, okay, we're going to get the $19.5 million and then go from there. That's part of it. To go forward, then we'll get the information from the GMP of what is actually needed,
right. Okay.
And then we will go from there as far as when we go out to price everything and do all of those things.
Okay.
This just gives us kind of that buffer of, you can move forward up to this amount if necessary.
That was my other. I didn't know if we don't have to do all that, because I know that they said we were about 19 million over, but that does not include the state 4 mills that they're giving us. So I thought it might be a little excessive, but you said this was also interest and just in case.
Yes, and so part of that is the capitalized interest, because that will be a part of that, which is outside of, kind of outside, but it's got to be inclusive in that number.
Okay. And to piggyback off of what you were saying with the overages, after I talked to Ms. Stoikoy after our special meeting last week, and I know tried to always let you know when I meet with anybody, but because this was going to be on the agenda, then we get into open meeting violations, so I couldn't share that out. So I'm sharing all that information with you all now. That concern about what they were saying about, well, and also we want to bump this up, and we want to bump this up, and we want to bump this up. And so part of, it was already going to be on this agenda, but part of why she really wants us to act tonight is that going into Friday, it gives them a backbench of saying the board says this is why this is our limit, and why the board is saying that is because this is the limit that Ms. Stoikoy has determined is feasible. I mean, we can't go beyond this, because that was the question I had for her. I said, can we do this as a district? Because I'm certainly not writing any of this language or determining any of this feasibility, on my own. I'm trusting our treasurer and her recommendation. She assured me that she believes that we can, and so I'm certainly trusting her word on that, and I do trust her, and I believe her, and I think, obviously the interest, we know we have this piece of property, that we hope to be able to sell. I would hope that if we're the board or if other people are on the board, that they would take that money towards this debt, because I think that would make sense. That's the part that gives me the most heartburn about this, because I trust that we can do it, because I trust Ms. Stoikoy when she told me that, because I asked her very directly. She gave me a very direct answer. But the part that gives me the most heartburn is that, the 5 of us aren't going to be the 5 people here forever. And so I do have that concern about burdening future people, because when we talked about this property, and we talked about, that lease for the cell phone tower, and how, just bad language in that burdened us in terms of certain things. So that's the piece that bothers me the most, is just I hope that future people aren't burdened by a decision we make. But I do believe, we made a commitment to the community to try to make it happen and not ask them for more money. And as much as I would like this to not be the way that we had to do this, unfortunately, based on what Ms. Stoikoy is telling me, this is the path that we must take. So I certainly hope it's not 19.5, but...
Yeah, me too.
Agreed. This is certainly not a path I would voluntarily choose to take. But in order to deliver, what we've committed to and what we've promised, it's just unfortunately a necessity. This is one of the avenues we have to go down in order to make that happen. Now, one bright spot, we will get interest on this, which those rates are good right now, so that there is that, but that's just a small bright spot in all of it.
Yeah, and I like that it gives, I know both of you and others I think in our district will be at that GMP meeting all day Friday. I like that it gives you something as a backbench going into that meeting, because I think you're going to need it, unfortunately. So I appreciate it that it gives you something. I think it helps us be able to keep that commitment to the community that we did make to do everything we can. And this is the last piece, because we went through the other two pieces, and this is the last piece that we're left with, to do everything we can to deliver that auditorium and stadium, and this will, we believe, allow us to do that, and that's very important because they are educational pieces of the building. And then we also delayed that planning committee meeting until April because we said that we would work to get this piece wrapped up, that it wouldn't just be a maybe, we think it's going to happen, but that we would have something in place to secure that piece as well. So I think it also helps us keep some commitments we've made, which I think is important to all of us. As uncomfortable as some of these decisions are, I don't think anyone's happy or comfortable having to do this. Other thoughts from the board?
Just, like you said, this is not a decision that I think any of us take lightly, and we've all been through this process of, in one way, whether we were community members and then board members, from start to finish, even before COVID and through. And ultimately, I personally, and I'm not going to speak for anybody else on the board, but do feel that it's so important that we keep our commitment to the community and give them what they voted on and what was promised. And I too trust Ms. Stokely in her ability to say what we can do financially. And I think that there are creative ways that we can offset whatever we need to help this not be a burden on people down the road that may be sitting in these chairs.
Anything more from the board? I do have two comments from the public. Okay. I have two comments from the public. Mr. Broadwater, if you get our timer up. I'm going to put the timer up just because one time I didn't put a timer up, and then the person that commented was upset that I didn't put the timer up. So it's not because we're trying to cut you off. It's because someone appreciated the timer. So when we call you up, you have 3 minutes to address the board. We just ask that you give your name and address and then direct all comments to me because I'm the presiding officer. So up first is Ms. Leslie Frank. Please come up to the microphone. And then after your time is up, if you'll stay there, because our public participation policy does give us the opportunity to ask questions. If the board has questions of you after you speak, we can engage in conversation if there's anything that we want to know more about.
I'm Leslie Frank, 49 Orville Avenue. I've been on the planning committee for this new building for seems like forever. And one thing that this COPS lease purchase, I understand from listening that the GMP meeting is Friday, and we don't meet until April 20th. So it just seems kind of backwards, like the committee wasn't informed about this prior to you guys making a decision. So I would humbly ask, but I think the answer is going to be no, that this decision could be tabled until after our April 20th meeting for the next, because your next board meeting after that will be April 26th. So my question is, can this be tabled until the April 26th meeting, or is it something that needs to be done with the meeting that's happening on Friday, does it need to be done right now? That's my question.
Our public participation policy doesn't allow for us to answer questions.
Okay. Excuse me. So I guess my declaration then would be I respectfully ask for you guys to table this decision until the April 26th meeting. And then I'm done.
And then what I can do is, does anyone from the board have questions for Ms. Frank? Thank you. Okay. Our next speaker is
PTL.
Okay. I'll make sure. I want to make sure I had it right. I really didn't want to mess it up. Okay. Is Jessica Pintiello. If you please come up to the microphone. I was like, if I mess it up, it's going to be so bad.
No, it's fine. Everybody knows.
I know, that's what I was trying to get
Hi, I'm Jessica Pintiello. I live at 2911 Norwood Street. I'm also a member of the construction planning committee with our community. I think I expressed some of the same concern that my colleague Leslie has spoken about. I think one of the main issues, it's such a large document, it's 10 pages, and a lot of us have looked at it when it was proposed for tonight's agenda. There's a lot of legalese. There's a lot that we as community members, I don't feel maybe we understand as far as what this will mean for us for future impact with the buildings and with the community in general. And I think we as a committee have a lot of questions about it. We certainly want to be informed enough to advocate for the community when they come to us for questions, because that was the whole purpose of asking us to be involved in the planning committee and now the construction planning committee, so that we can not only advocate for what we're doing here, knowing that this is important for our students, knowing that this is going to create a larger impact in our community overall, but so that we can answer any questions or concerns that other community members may have that are not part of this planning process. So, and I don't know if this is something that has to be decided tonight. I do think it would be nice for us to have a conversation with the committee just so that we better understand what's being proposed and so that we can inform anybody who may have questions or concerns about it. I know in our last meeting we still had questions about how we're going to make this work financially. I know you guys have been absolutely transparent. I appreciate everybody's advocacy. I appreciate everybody listening to our thoughts and concerns, but I think we have more questions than answers from where we're standing on this side of the table. So I would also humbly ask that it might be at least postponed, and perhaps maybe we could get our committee together prior to our April date if this is something that needs to be done right away, or maybe send a communication out to the committee with bullet points of what this specifically means in ways that we will understand. I am no financial expert, and I certainly trust our treasurer. She's done an amazing job. This is a great Board of Education. I think everybody is behind the work that we're doing. I just think that it would be prudent for us to be a little cautious and maybe talk to our committee so that we can better inform our community. So,
thank you.
Thanks for
Anyone
listening.
from the board have any questions? I would just say what I heard is that I think the mistake we made as a board, and I'll take the blame because I helped set the agenda, so I have no problem taking the blame. I think the mistake we made was not sending out a notification to the committee to let them know this was going to be tonight. And I think going forward, I can do a better job at that. And so I appreciate that information, and I think going forward I can do a better job at that. But I appreciate your suggestion about sending out bullet point, and I'll work with Ms. Stoikoi, and we'll do that. I don't know if it'll happen before the end of the week, but we'll try.
And I don't know if I can
I
retort
appreciate
back,
that.
but I thank you for that. I really appreciate it. You do a great job. You're a good president.
Yeah.
But I would also maybe ask if we do take that route, then I don't know when your next board meeting is. If you do the key points for us, and then if we are able to ask questions, even just via email if we can't convene a committee meeting, and then perhaps put it on the next board agenda to vote on, I think that would be really prudent for all of us. So.
Thank you. Any more discussion from the board?
So if we would postpone, would that hinder or hurt us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
In order to move forward on the timelines and to have what OFCC needs for us to move forward with the project, once everything is done, we have to have all the funds encumbered basically and show them that we have that. And so to stay on that timeline, we have to move forward tonight, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. And then you will put out a bulletin to the planning committee with this. Okay. Thank you.
And I think that is a good point going forward that we can work with, and maybe even work with Mr. Jones in terms of like when we're at agenda review, if we notice something is related to this project, we can work with Mr. Jones. He has that email list, and then maybe that's just something that we can make part of that process going forward. Because I don't think anyone's intention is to make people feel left out, but I am happy to take responsibility if that's how people felt. I want to validate that and recognize that that's not our intention, but that I'm always happy to learn from experiences and commit myself to doing better going forward, because I think we're all committed to that, and I think you know that I'm committed to that, and I'll learn from my mistakes and do better going forward, because that's what we all want for our community and our district in this project.
Thank you. I appreciate that too, because I don't want to lose anybody on that.
No, that's not the intention.
I do appreciate that, Mr. Collins. Thank you.
Are we prepared then to vote with the understandings of how we'll move going forward? Okay. Please call the roll now.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Ms. Schaefer?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 2 under board business is a HB1 resolution. It's recommended the Board of Education approves the resolution expressing support to fulfill Ohio's constitutional mandate to fund a thorough and efficient public school system.
So moved.
Second.
I would ask Mr. Harris to read the resolution.
Absolutely. A resolution expressing support to fulfill Ohio's constitutional mandate to fund a thorough and efficient public school system. Whereas the Ohio Constitution requires the General Assembly to provide enough funding to secure a thorough and efficient system of common schools throughout the state, and whereas a group of school superintendents and treasurers led by State Representatives Robert Cupp and John Patterson developed the Fair School Funding Plan that included a number of recommendations to meet the constitutional mandate, and whereas the 134th Ohio General Assembly passed into law a 6-year phase-in of the Fair School Funding Plan and appropriated funding, which amounted to 1/3 of the cost of full implementation of the plan, and whereas the legislation implementing the phased-in Fair School Funding Plan did not include the recommended funding for economically disadvantaged students, and the proposed study of the cost of educating economically disadvantaged students called for in the Fair School Funding Plan, and whereas Ohio's current fiscal position is one of tremendous strength, as verified with a recent contribution to the Budget Stabilization Fund of $727 million, and Ohio state tax revenues continue to far exceed expenditures for the current fiscal year, positioning the state to have a projected budget surplus at the conclusion of the year of more than $5 billion. And whereas Governor DeWine proposed a current biennial budget that continues to phase in the funding of the Fair School Funding Plan, but uses fiscal year 2018 data inputs to determine base cost funding, which results in a deficit of close to 25% in the funding for the actual cost, does not include the recommended study of the cost of education for economically disadvantaged students, and recommends an expansion of the Ed Choice Voucher Program, and whereas the 135th Ohio General Assembly has introduced proposed legislation creating a backpack scholarship program, House Bill 11, Senate Bill 11, which significantly increases the number and availability of vouchers for students to attend private schools at the expense of the public taxpayer, and whereas Ohio's Nonpartisan Legislative Service Commission has estimated the backpack scholarship program will cost approximately $1.13 billion in fiscal year 2025 of the new biennial budget if all 185,400 newly eligible non-public students take a scholarship under House Bill 11 and $528 million in each of the fiscal year 2024 and fiscal year 2025 under Senate Bill 11. And whereas such vouchers will be available to all families and students, including those who have never attended Cuyahoga Falls City School District or any other public school, and for whom state funding has never been provided to the Cuyahoga Falls City School District or any other public school. And whereas voucher programs have recently expanded to New Hampshire, Wisconsin, and Arizona, students who have never attended a public school now comprise more than 75% of the vouchers being used in each of the aforementioned states. And whereas under a universal backpack scholarship program, Ohio would be authorizing an excessive and fiscally irresponsible rebate refund program that will subsidize families currently paying tuition at private schools. And whereas private schools accepting students with public tax vouchers would not be required to accept all students, but would be permitted to retain their selective admission policies without enforcement of other laws applicable to public schools. And whereas parents using the vouchers will exact far more tax dollars out of the system than they typically pay annually in property tax, and whereas Ohio taxpayers and local communities will bear the brunt of having to subsidize parent choice for those parents who choose to never enroll their children in Ohio's quality public schools, and whereas the 135th Ohio General Assembly has also introduced House Bill 1, proposed legislation that would make numerous changes to the Ohio property taxes, and whereas House Bill 1 would eliminate a property tax relief program, commonly referred to as the 10% rollback, on residential and agricultural property, which was instituted in 1972, the same time that the state income tax was created, and would automatically result in an unvoted tax increase of $1.221 billion for residential and agricultural taxpayers. And whereas in an attempt to offset the unvoted tax increase, House Bill 1 proposes to reduce the assessment percentage on residential, agricultural, business, and commercial property from 35% to 31.5% without understanding whether or not House Bill 920 tax reduction factors will be triggered. And whereas based on calculations provided by Ohio Association of School Business Officials, the revenue loss to the Cuyahoga Falls City School District in the first year of implementation would be approximately $4 million if House Bill 1 passes and House Bill 920 reduction factors apply, and would be approximately $7 million if House Bill 1 passes and HB 920 reduction factors do not apply. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Cuyahoga Falls City School District's Board of Education that this board reaffirms its commitment to free, accessible public schools, which are adequately and equitably funded to guarantee a comparable education for all children. Be it further resolved that this board opposes expansion of the Ed Choice Voucher Program, House Bill 11, Senate Bill 11, and any funding programs, vouchers, educational savings accounts, or other plans that have the effect of diverting public tax dollars from public schools to private schools. Be it further resolved that this board opposes House Bill 1 and any plan for taxes that reduces funding for Ohio public schools and children. Be it further resolved that this board reaffirms its appreciation for the diversity of our community, including those community members who are on a fixed income or otherwise cannot afford an increase in their property taxes, and urges the Ohio legislature to focus on efforts to provide tax relief to those community members who most need it. Be it further resolved that this board requests that the Ohio General Assembly and Governor of Ohio commit to fully funding the Fair School Funding Plan as it was initially recommended, including current inputs and including conducting the proposed study to determine the cost of educating economically disadvantaged children. Be it further resolved that the Treasurer is authorized to deliver or cause to be delivered a certified copy of this resolution to members of the Ohio House of Representatives and the Ohio Senate, including House Speaker Jason Stevens, House Minority Leader Allison Russo, Senate President Matt Huffman, Senate Minority Leader Nikki Antonio, Representative Adam Byrd, Chair of the House Primary and Secondary Education Committee, State Representative Phil Robinson, Ranking Member of the House Primary and Secondary Education Committee, State Senator Andrew Brenner, Chair of the Senate Education Committee, State Senator Catherine Ingram, Ranking Member of the Senate Education Committee, State Representative Bill Romer, Chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, State Representative Dan Troy, Ranking Member of the House Ways and Means Committee, and State Representative Casey Weinstein, State Senator Christina Rogner, and the Office of Governor Mike DeWine. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and immediately after its adoption and shall supersede any prior resolution or act of the board which may be inconsistent or duplicative with its provisions or this resolution, and be it further resolved that it is hereby found and determined that all formal actions of this board concerning and relating to the passage of this resolution were taken in an open meeting of this board, and that all deliberations of this board and of any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Thank you. It's a lot, but it's important. Any comments from the board? Mr. Harris?
This is necessary. You all got a little bit of a glimpse there of how unfair this is, and I think it's definitely something that is needed and something that we are looking forward to sending down to Columbus to all those names.
I think it's important that we do things like this to advocate on behalf of our community, because in doing so, we're advocating on behalf of our taxpayers, because so many people in our community do fall into that economically disadvantaged category. And, you know, these tax breaks that they continue to give in Columbus, and they always say, well, we gave you a tax break. We gave a tax break in the last budget, but those tax breaks don't help the people that we represent here in Cuyahoga Falls. Tax breaks are so often for big business, or, you know, it's great to have businesses like Intel and Honda and all these other things, but those are the tax breaks they're talking about. They're not helping the people of our school district. And giving a tax break here when they admit that it's going to cause us to need to ask our local folks for more property tax money is not really a reasonable tax break, because it's not helping our community, it's not helping our students. So.
And we do serve a lot of economically disadvantaged. And we have a lot of senior citizens, too. So.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Stoikoi? Aye.
You get to sign it. Next on our agenda, we have somebody who did the 3-day notice to address the board. We're kind of say we have people come in to comment on agenda items and a 3-day notice, and we don't get people to come talk to us very often, and we get really excited when people actually do take the time to come speak to us. So we are very excited tonight to have people utilizing both parts of our public participation policy. So thank you to all of you that spoke to us tonight. So Mr. Broadwater, if we get their 3 minutes up, and we have Ellen Sobosinski, and I believe it's your husband that you're bringing up. If you'll introduce him as well, and state your name and address, and they're here on behalf of Green Heart Exchange. And if you'll stay up at the end of your time in case we have any questions as well. Thank you.
I'm Ellen Sobosinski. This is my husband, Carl Sobosinski. Okay, let's see, we are from 3560 Orchard Drive in Stowe, Ohio. But I am a black tiger. I graduated in 85, so this is back home to me. Anyway, so I did want to just quickly, if I can, tell you about us. When I was in high school here in 85, I had the opportunity to go to Russia with our Russian history class. Now, mind you, in 85, it was still the Soviet Union. Okay, so we went over there. I learned 2 things when I was over there. 1, I loved America. And 2, I want to travel and experience the world. Fast forward years, met my husband, and we decided, well, my husband teaches history, world history, and Asian history. So we figured if we were going to teach that, then we should live in Asia and experience it. So for 6 years, we had lived in South Korea, where he taught at the university, and I taught the little ones. They were so cute. And when we come back, though, we thought, how do we give this back? Because these kids really wanted to come to America, and a lot of times they couldn't get here because there was no host families. So we were hoping when we come back that we were going to change that a little bit. So we had joined a agency, and it is Green Heart Exchange. And I'm going to pass it over to my coworker.
Carl Sobosinski, she's already introduced me. Green Heart Exchange is what's called a placement agency. We place schools in families, host families that will take them for either a semester, usually a full academic year. And we work with schools, placing them in the schools. The reason we're here, this is a good opportunity to meet school officials and make contact, get the process going should we find a family in the area. We work largely with scholarship students. Running out of time. The State Department has created a number of scholarship students, largely geographic, based on certain areas of the world. And these students that win these scholarships are fantastic. By the time they make their final selections, you get some fantastic students. And we would like very much to place one here if we find the host family. So we are, not a lot of time, let's say. Our own experience abroad has put us in a good position to support students in these situations. We are very accustomed to being foreigners. And we don't simply drop the student off and disappear. We are there to help them through their scholarship requirements, whatever other issues they be dealing with school and family. So we are at your service, essentially.
Does anyone have any questions?
I just have a quick comment. I was lucky enough to teach English, and I had some that came. One was from Rome, and I didn't realize where he lived, but he lived in, I can't think of the, any rate, one part of Rome that was just beautiful. You want to see my house? I said, sure, why not? Oh my gosh.
Show us things like that, yeah.
And then I had another one from Germany, and I will tell you they were both excellent students.
Yeah.
Excellent. So it was a pleasure to have them in my classroom.
Yeah. Does your company work with students from like a certain area of the world?
Two of the scholarship programs are through the State Department. The first one is FLEX, which is Future Leaders Exchange. These are students from the former Soviet Union bloc countries coming over here to learn about, democracy. Now, the other program is called YES. It's a student exchange study. It's primarily the Middle East countries. And it was formed after 9/11 to kind of build a bridge to bring people back together. And both of those scholarships, like I said, are usually full year. They're 10-month programs. These kids are extremely motivated. They have 50 hours of community volunteering they have to do. They do presentations, country presentations, follow civic leaders.
And some of our duties is to help them complete these requirements.
Yeah.
It's part of the State Department what they call education cultural exchange, but in a broader sense, it functions as what they call soft diplomacy, basically showing them the best of America, which we are very happy to do.
Yeah, and like I said, we're part of the team, so we're part with the student, the family, and the schools, and our agency, and making the State Department happy.
Yes. Yeah, we have to qualify from the State Department every year. Our organization is certified by the State Department. We have to pass a test every year, updates on regulations, making sure everything is in order. So.
Do you have a card on you?
Oh,
yes.
we have them.
If you could leave that with Dr. Selko, and she can just have the appropriate person follow up with you from there.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the way to do that.
Thank you for enduring all that.
Yes.
Yes, for sitting here.
I'm sorry, I have to say this. I was a gold key winner.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness.
Cool.
And I don't know if anybody remembers Ron Simon.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Thank you again.
But yeah, Dr. Selko can have the appropriate person follow up with you from there. Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming. Item 4 is future agenda items. Do we have any additional future agenda items at this time?
No, I think I did. I think I
Okay. Number 5 is committee reports. You're up first, Ms. White, with a 612 construction core team.
Okay, well, the construction team, we talked the TDA, the core. The loop road off of Portage Trail is completely stoned. The western parking lot toward Norma, and those parking lots are now stoned. The east Portage Trail, there's a little bit of organic, so they had to go back and open that up and stabilize that, more cement. The utilities, we need a plumbing permit. Storm structures are complete. The east-west water line to connect 13th with the south, that's happening. And then the week of the 27th the week of the 27th, the shutdown of the water, where the road will be closed the 21st through the 28th, unfortunately. So those people, will get noticed, though. The Bullock water will be turned off, but spring break for students and teachers and staff is going on then, so hopefully that won't be a problem. So we did approve the storm piece, I think last time, in the rammed aggregate piers, so that was good. The easement for Dominion East Ohio Gas, we're in the process of going through attorneys and so on to get that done. We did receive bids. We received over 100 bids, and they are going through 36 packages to see what, I don't know, I'm going to probably say the bid, whatever it was, but I can't remember either right term, but any rate, to see which ones are better and going. And for example, we're not just taking the lowest one because it's the lowest. We're also, do have standards that apply, so it won't be, just the cheapest one out there. So they are looking at that. We are, of course, talking about the budget. And let's see. TDA. So I think that's about really all that we talked about. So.
Thank you, Ms. White.
Sure.
Athletics and Activity Council, Mrs. Schaefer, it's your time to shine.
All right. It's a little bit lengthy. We met on Monday. We talked about winter sports, like winter sports wrap-up. Girls basketball placed 5th in the Suburban League. Boys basketball, the record was 12 and 11. This was the first winning record since 2016. They also placed 5th in the Suburban League. Wrestling was 13 and 9. They placed 8th in the Suburban League and had 5 wrestlers qualified for districts. Swimming, the boys were 3 and 7, girls 4 and 6. The boys placed 6th in the Suburban League and the girls placed 5th, and there were 9 district qualifiers, which was the most since 2016. Correct, 2016? Bowling, the boys were 9 and 2, girls 7 and 1. Boys placed 3rd in the league and 3rd at sectionals, and the girls placed 9th in the league and 5th at sectionals. And cheerleading tryouts start this Friday. And they reported track numbers are actually up. They're going to continue to practice on the rubber runways that they purchased underneath the home side bleachers. And then Woodridge agreed to let our students practice at their fields and after they're done with their practice, so in the evening times. Soccer practice continue at Sill. Soccer games will continue to be at KSU in the fall. Some new and exciting things at Cuyahoga Falls High School. Start of spring sports, baseball, softball, track, and field, and boys tennis. The dugouts at Harrington Field are going to be repainted. The end zone bleachers at Clifford have all been removed, as well as the barbed wire. And exciting news, the home and away bleachers are going to flip back to the way they were. So that accommodate, I'm so excited, to accommodate, because we have so many people that are going to be attending the games that we need to make room for them, obviously. And we have purchased an inflatable tunnel for the athletes to come up at the game.
Will the band be going through the tunnel as well as instrument?
Oh, I didn't ask that.
Yeah, it's tall enough.
For tubas? Nice.
See, there you go. I know that's important to you, Mrs. Schaefer.
I'm so stoked over that. Really. And then youth camp registrations will be going out to elementary and middle schools starting early April. We went over the winter financial report. Basically, high school basketball and swimming both ended in the positive, and high school wrestling and bowling both ended kind of in the negative. They don't charge admission for middle school sports, so they were in the negative there also. And I think that's all I have on that for our winter recap. I'm pretty excited about the bleacher change.
I think a lot of people in our community are going to be very excited about that.
I've
As one of
received a lot
those
of emails.
one of those things that you don't think is going to you don't think you're going to be responding to as many emails about as you spend time responding to so many emails about. So
I know
think people will be very pleased.
And a lot of people are very excited to hear of that we've approved for the new football coach.
And I think finding ways to preserve old traditions but make them new in terms of the tunnel with the mascot as we move to the new building as well. I think that's great as well because we're finding a way to modify the tradition but still find a way to kind of preserve it. So kudos to Mr. Johnson and his folks for finding those creative ways to do that because it's important to our people to have that, but we modify it to make it new and work for our new building.
New and exciting.
Board policy, we're up, Ms. White. We got a new update, so we'll be needing to meet soon. Okay. I think I haven't talked to you about this yet. It's on my. We're gonna see if we can't try to meet sometime during spring break because Dr. Selico and Ms. Stoikoi both have a little bit more schedule availability because most other people aren't here to try to fill up their schedules.
Yes.
So I'm gonna.
That's fine.
I'm gonna talk to you about it to see if we can't try to get something scheduled that week because
not
they
at
both.
8 in the morning.
Yes.
But
Oh no.
Oh, I think 7:30.
I don't do 7:30 either.
I'll be zooming.
Yeah. But I think that's the goal because we got the new update and then we have quite a few other things.
Lots of flexibility.
We need to get
just core team on the Thursday.
Yes, you do. In fact,
so that's the only.
If you want to team it up,
only one.
I can't do Thursdays because of work.
Yeah, so that's fine.
But,
Any other time is good.
We'll work on that
good.
and get that going. And I think Mr. Jones is going to send us the packet of information on
So
Friday.
I didn't know.
If not, I'll send them an email.
Got a packet.
Yeah. No, more to read, Ms. White.
It's fine. I don't care.
Business Alliance Council, Ms. Coco and Mr. Harris.
Yes, we had our meeting on March 14th, and I don't know if it was coincidence or not, but it was Pi Day, and Dr. Selico had invited Dr. Kim Yoke to come and give a presentation on the strategic plan for K-12 math in the district. Just a short presentation on what they've been working on, and a lot of the presentation focused on changing the culture when it comes to math and how we think of math and speak about math. And we don't tell our kids at home, parents don't tell their kids at home, oh, I hate reading, I'm really bad at reading. But we do say that about math if we're bad at math. And it's just kind of ingrained that, oh, I'm bad at it, I don't understand it, instead of it's something that we can learn. Not that parents need to be learning, calculus or anything like that, but really just from the basic foundations of changing, and it needs to be a culture shift that starts for not just at home, but at school too. And that math really is something that can encompass instruction in many ways, not unlike literacy, to improve how we feel about it and the outcomes for our students. So it was very interesting. And then we spent the rest of our time breaking into our 6 groups with the strategic plans and the 6 goals focused around student database, career night, job fair, mentorships, mock interviews, and internships. and we will have 2 more meetings before the end of the year with those groups. They're all of the groups except Mr. Smith and Ms. Bogdan were not available to be there, but there is representation in all the groups of a mix of administrators as well as business and community leaders. So that's it.
Financial Advisory Committee meets in May, I believe. So Foundation Alumni Association, we also met on March 14th. We will have 50 scholarships to give out this year. If you will allow me one quick moment, because I want to give you the exact date that we are meeting. So I want to look that up because Mr. Medkeff told me I had to give you the date. We are meeting Tuesday, May 9th is our scholarship recognition, our distinguished alumni, and we also started last year, we recognize a business every year because we are getting more business sponsors as well. So we have 50 scholarships to give away this year, which we are excited about. Karen Schofield, who's one of our new trustees, did a one-pager for us. I didn't want to bring, because it was like a draft version, and I didn't want to show her draft because the final version looks much nicer, so I didn't want to show off the draft. But we have this one-pager of some of the information about the Foundation Alumni Association. We're also going to have that at the table, the district table, at the Art Walk as well, to start passing out to the community just some great information. And to come up with that, she went through some of our past information about the Foundation Alumni Association. I believe in Bedford, where Dr. Salgo came from, we give away approximately 5 scholarships a year. We have you know here in Cuyahoga Falls, the least amount of scholarships we've ever given out was 6. That's the minimum amount of scholarships we've given out. The most scholarships we've ever given out in one year was 72. So we're really proud of what we do here because we're the only group of people whose only purpose is to give scholarships to our students. And Ms. Bogdan really helped us out in getting students to apply this year. I think she did a really good job of making sure the students realize the only competition for these scholarships are the other seniors in this building, because I think sometimes our students get discouraged because there's so many people going for these big scholarships and different things, but when they finally realize the only people competing for these scholarships are the 300 or so other seniors in your class, you have a really good shot at getting one of these. And so we're really excited about that. We're hoping to give away some more teacher grants as well. That application period is still open. And we are just really excited about the progress moving forward, and thank all of the people that are members of the Foundation Alumni Association. As always, you can continue to join the Foundation Alumni Association. As Mr. Medkev says, we can only do it because of you. CFSFAA.org. Easy to sign up.
I got my welcome packet in the mail today.
Thank you. And I'd also note that our one-pager follows the Cuyahoga Falls branding guides.
Oh.
And we are in the official colors of Cuyahoga Falls. So you too can use the appropriate colors. Legislative liaison, Mr. Harris.
So the state legislative conference was on Tuesday. Unfortunately, I got psyched out by my unborn son and thought that he might be coming a little sooner than he did. He's not here yet, but so I did not attend because I did not want to be a ball of anxiety down there in Columbus, worrying about my pregnant wife back here. So Mr. Gomez was able to attend, and so I'm just going to pass it along to him. He was, he heard a lot of these updates from the sources themselves. So take it away.
And I brought a copy for all of my fellow board members of our legislative talking points that they passed out on the different bills that are the priority bills for us to talk about. You'll note that on Senate Bill 1 and House Bill 12, only OSBA's logo is on there because unfortunately FASA and OASBO are refusing to take a position on the restructuring of the Ohio Department of Education, which I quizzed their leadership about yesterday as well, because I think that's a very disappointing point of view. And I said, OSBA will remember that when they try to take away superintendent and treasurer powers in the future. So if you want to take one and pass it down, because I want to bring that information as well. I mean,
No one wants to.
yeah, so it's just unfortunate, but the games that those organizations play to try to stay in good graces of certain people. But we had Governor DeWine came, and I give the governor a lot of credit because his education agenda really is a lot of the things that we do want to hear. And as we heard about our literacy presentation tonight, he's pushing for all across the state of Ohio that science of reading we heard about, phonemic awareness, phonics. He's pushing for that because it is tried and true. It does work. And so many school districts have invested in literacy programming that has been proven to not work, unfortunately. So he, in his budget, has money for those districts that invested in bad literacy curriculum to get funding to change to more positive curriculum. Now there's a push for districts like ours that have already invested in this curriculum. The question is, what's in it for us? So those are conversations that our three organizations are having about what we could get out of that, and what, is it support going forward? Is it just an infusion of money because we already spent on it? There's a lot of ideas going forward about that. The other thing he's pushing for is the school resource officer funding. The issue with that is that private and parochial charter schools are getting direct funded for every school in his budget, $64,000 per school for an SRO. Now, we only get funding based off of our formula funding, and we get very, very little bit of that $64,000. That's for all public schools. You get funding based off of your formula. Now, there's a lot of issues with this because, one, there aren't enough police officers in the state of Ohio for every school to have an SRO. Secondly, as a lot of people were saying yesterday, not every school necessarily needs a full-time SRO because some of these buildings are very small, or some of these more rural districts have a one-hallway school. They're like, what's my SRO going to do all day? So there's more conversations about, could this be safety funding? Is there going to be more flexibility with that funding? That's another conversation they're trying to get with the governor about that SRO funding. But again, a great idea, and it's something Dr. Selico's really pushed for, is more security and funding. But could we use that perhaps to subsidize, this retired officer we're hiring part-time to run our security programming? Right now we couldn't, but realistically that would be a great use of that funding. So that's a conversation they're trying to have with the governor as well. The one thing he's pushing for is the expansion of the current EdChoice vouchers up to the 400% poverty level. But in terms of all the voucher proposals out there, his is the least bad. So if they're going to do something, his is the least bad. So if we have to get voucher expansion, I'll take his. And why his is the least bad is because it still keeps the paperwork process. These other ones, there's no paperwork. You just show up and they get the direct funding. And there's and the issue with that too, it speaks to something that Senator Ingram wants to do with transfer of school documents. If there's no paperwork and the people don't even have to sign anything, how do we know that we're transferring documents to a school that somebody's actually registered in? So it creates legal issues about where we're transferring student data to. So there's a lot of issues with that. Then we had the Senate president come in. He's awful. He left without answering any questions. He said they want to eliminate the State Board of Education because they all represent 1 million people and they don't have any staff, so they can't do their jobs. Well, 2 seats over from me was my very good friend Jenna Dare, who's the president of the Columbus School Board. Now, she represents almost 1 million people as the president of the Columbus School Board. And let me tell you how many staff members she has. It's 0. And she does her job phenomenally. So that's a terrible reason. So he didn't take any questions and left, which is par for the course. Then we had Speaker Stevens come in. And the thing about Speaker Stevens is he comes from down on the Ohio River, and a very rural part of Ohio. and they don't have private schools where he comes from. They only have public schools. So he's very passionate about public education because he is a product of public education. He talked about how his second grade teacher inspired his love of politics. He's very sincere, and I think his beliefs are because of where he comes from, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's his right to have the beliefs that he has. But he's very sincere, and it comes across when he talks. And he talked a lot about HB1, which is the restructuring of our tax structure in Ohio. And he was a former county auditor. And he talked very passionately about just how he believes that our taxation system is out of date in Ohio. And so he's passionate about it and very sincere about it. But I think he understands that the full bill is problematic. So he's hoping to find ways to modify our tax structure in Ohio in ways that are less harmful to public entities. So very sincere person and very honest. So I really like, this is the second time I've gotten to hear from him. Very sincere, kind person. So props to him. He talked for 10 minutes and took questions from the crowd, just calling on people for like half an hour. So I give him a lot of credit for that because most of those people won't do that. Then we had a panel of the chair and ranking members of the Senate Education and House Education Committees. So it's Senator Brenner and Senator Ingram, Representative Byrd, who's a former superintendent, and Representative Robinson from Solon. And they talked about the different bills that their committees are doing. There's a lot of disagreement on vouchers, House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 1 between the two chambers. So I'm not sure that any of those are going to be passed in their current forms, because even just like up there on the panel, they were arguing about their differences about what they want, what the governor wants. So that gives me hope, because when they disagree with one another, they have to compromise, and then it gets less bad. Right. So, and then we had lunch with our legislators, and Representative Weinstein came, and he brought his aide, Leah, who's wonderful. I know AJ, Mr. Harris, and I have had an opportunity to meet her as well. She's phenomenal. She was pointing out some new education bills that have been proposed and asking for feedback as well. And I will also point out that the first thing Representative Weinstein said was, wasn't Mr. Harris supposed to be here? And I pointed out why he was not here, and then he said, that baby still hasn't come. So even our state reps on Baby Watch 2023. But he was asking about our project, and I explained the COPS thing, and he was interested in learning more about that. And trying to understand that piece in the OFCC, and I just said, stand by on the OFCC because they're working well with us for now, but if they lead us on too long and don't put into paper that money that they're promising, then we might call on you to put a little pressure on to make sure we can get that in writing, and he's more than happy to help us with that. And the best news was while he was there, the House Minority Whip, Jessica Miranda, came over, who's a former school board member herself, and was talking to him, and he called me into their conversation because she had just gotten word that Representative Jay Edwards, who's the Finance Committee chair, is going to co-sponsor a bill with the two of them to try to fund free lunches for every student in the state of Ohio, which is a passion of Representative Weinstein. We know it's a big deal for us here in Cuyahoga Falls, something we want to see happen. And so I said, Chef Bill has all the information you need. They want people to come down and testify. I said, Chef Bill will be on it. He will be here testifying. I said, I can promise you that. He will find a way to make time to be there because that's awesome. So that's really super exciting. Representative Edwards comes from a very rural part of Ohio where this is a huge issue for these people. So he's very passionate about these issues. So it's just exciting to see that at work. Unfortunately, Senator Rogner promised that she was coming to the luncheon, and told myself and a school board member from Hudson to not schedule meetings because she was going to come speak with us at the luncheon, and then she no-showed at the luncheon. But that's unfortunately, as we experienced when we were down in Columbus as well, par for the course of what we've experienced with her and her unwillingness to speak to us. And it's very unfortunate, but it's been our experiences of late. Right. So it was really good information, and just keeping our district in the mix of all of these conversations happening and make sure that we're all informed.
Thank you for going. Thank you.
Student Achievement Liaison, I know the district leadership team did not meet. Did you have anything else?
No,
okay.
We didn't meet. We meet April 3rd.
Comments. I'm up first. Sorry, I just spoke a ton. I had the opportunity to go to the DeWitt Art Show and Book Fair, and I had my oldest nephew with me that night, so he came along with me, and he was so excited. The only other time he had been to DeWitt was for his COVID shot, so he was excited to be there for something more exciting than his COVID shot. But there were these shadow boxes they made out of the extra pizza boxes they had from Marco's, and they cut out the front and put pictures of the kids in, and then they put cellophane in, and they made like shadow boxes of themselves, and he got down on the ground and looked at every single one of them. He thought they were the coolest thing. And then, if you don't know, Miss Farkas is the art teacher at Lincoln. He said, I have to tell Miss Farkas about these. I don't know if she knows you can do this. He was just so excited to like see other kids, and he got to meet Mrs. Scala, another principal. He was so excited. And then he convinced me to buy him 5 books at the book fair. So, but it's literacy, so that's good. But the art was really wonderful there. I told him I was only going to buy him 1, but he got me up to 5. But they're books, so it's hard to say no. I was in Columbus yesterday for that conference. I also just wanted to give a thanks to Miss Stewart, because I recently met with her because we had some questions about some different things from the board. I just want to thank her for taking the time. And I also got to kind of see her at work. She is a whiz at what she does. It is so impressive. And even just sitting at this meeting, I could see her computer. She was like doing all the top tiger posts while we were sitting at this meeting. She's really phenomenal, and we're really fortunate to have her. So I just wanted to thank her for her time and helping clarify some stuff for us, and just thank her for all she does, because she's really making some great positive communications for parent communications, which is, I know, one of our passions as a board. Mr. Harris.
Just congratulations again to our top Tigers, our gold and silver key winners. Congratulations, Dr. Selico, again on a year. And also thank you to Ms. Dudones, our literacy crew, Dr. Cruz and Dr. Seifert for your presentation. I also, just briefly, my wife is on the planning commission here in Cuyahoga Falls, and I attended a meeting yesterday for, they're trying to pass chickens. Get chickens here in Cuyahoga Falls. So it's a big issue. It was a very crowded meeting. But Mr. McIntosh, who does our urban agriculture program, showed up, and he spoke very eloquently about the program and what they do here, and was able to provide the Planning Commission with some information that they didn't have on chicken coops and all the other things involved with keeping chickens. So just a shout out to the Steves and to all that program. I mean, I love talking about it. Anytime I go down to my hometown, Zanesville, they don't have that down there. So it's just a great program. The opportunities it brings to kids, just phenomenal. And then lastly, just another congratulations to Ms. Dudones, Ms. Bogdan, and Coach Eller. We're looking forward to seeing that winning season. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Schaefer?
I wanted to give congratulations to some musicians. They had a large OMEA, large group contest. We hosted here for instrumentalists. I think they were at I don't know where they were, for choir. Symphonic band, black band, and gold band all received superior ratings. A cappella choir, superior rating. and advanced treble choir received an excellent rating. Super impressive, super impressive. And I just wanted to promote this Art Sparks event, which is tomorrow, the Hummingbirds. So I'm pretty excited about this one. Both my kids did this. One was more excited about it than the other one. But always a good performance, so I'm really excited about this.
Thank you. Ms. White?
Well, I did bring an article, but because it's so late, I know everybody's going to cheer. Yay, I'm not going to read it. I'll wait another time. I will get to it, but I'll wait. The one thing I wanted to welcome Steve back as our PA guy for our meetings. Welcome back, Steve. I also wanted to talk about my literature, Dr. Seuss at Richardson. Oh, my gosh. I can go on and on. I'll try to make it short, but I don't think it's going to be because it was wonderful. I had kindergartners. So I took a chair that they use. I sit in it, and so I'm right there with them. And I'm reading a book, this tongue twister thing. And I said, of course, to them, now if I make a mistake, you can't laugh. And then I know you can. So, and then it was about a fish dying. He didn't really die, but you think, anyway. Oh, I had a fish die. Oh, no, I had a dog. Yeah. I had a grandpa, and I'm going, oh, my God. Yeah. So we talked, and then I read more. But after the kindergarten, we did read the one with the, I forget what it was called, Miss Coco, but the book you said. All Are Welcome. Yeah, All Are Welcome Here. And it was really cute. And, of course, they told me all the flags that they knew. And so on the way out, this little kindergarten boy gave me the biggest hug. He just came up and hugged me. And of course I'm going to, But the cutest thing was the teacher told me to wait, and she'd walk me down the hall to the second grade class. And this little kindergartner slips her hand into mine and just holds my hand all the way down the hall. Now, it made my day. And not even my day. I think it made my months. Because it's times like that you just, that's why I'm here in the seat, because the kids, and I love them, and they just respond for some reason to me. I don't know why. I don't know. But at any rate, they do. So then I got another hug from another little boy.
We know why, Miss Wade.
In second grade on the way out. So I was just so pleased and tickled, and they were so cute. And I really want to, hopefully, I'd like to do this every month if I could down the road, because it's so much fun. And,
teachers would love to have you in.
Sure. Well, I don't know, because, you take up time from them, and I don't, but I'd love to go to the different, elementaries and sit and read with, all of us, really.
Right. Well, I know at Richardson, and I think it's this way at all of the elementaries, typically grades K through 2 get read to during library time.
Okay.
They get a book read every time they come into library
I'll
week.
have to check it out.
Yeah, so if you connected with Miss Lindy.
Yeah, Miss Lindy, yeah.
Yeah, she would
I know
absolutely welcome you in during that time.
Because I don't want to just butt in on a teacher's class, but it's just something. I talked about this with my daughter and my sister and everybody. I'm like, oh my God, this little girl just slipped her hand in mine. I'm like, oh my gosh. And, they're just so cute and so innocent. We talked, we read. It was just so much fun. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Coco?
Yes, I'm going to keep it very short, brief. Congratulations again to our appointments this evening. And just the love that you have for the students in this district is so evident and for our district. And we just appreciate you being here. And I had no idea you were here for 20 years already, Miss Bogdan. You don't look that old to me. So I don't know if you started teaching. All right, time for us to wrap this up.
If Mrs. Geiger was here, she would point out that she was still in high school when Miss Bogdan first started teaching here. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
So you can let her know I pointed that out. I did that. I got that one in for her.
But I started my morning today with Dr. Selico over visiting Bullock with a building tour, and I just have to say, in general, middle schoolers get a bad rap. They just do. It's a hard time for kids and students, and in general, Bullock has gotten a bad rap in the past here in our district. And I was just nothing but impressed by our students and the level of respect and the behavior and the teachers engaging in the different classrooms and the students ready to learn. And so I just appreciate everything that is going on to everything that all the staff do and the students and the parents in our community to keep this culture of Black Tiger Pride going in the right direction. And I appreciate everyone that was involved in making the safety meetings yesterday happen in all the buildings, and I've received positive feedback from some parents whose students came home and told them about it, so thank you for that as well. I was able to go to the art show VIP early before the board meeting today because it was at the same time, and Ms. Robinson does a great job over there with all the students, and it's definitely my daughter's favorite subject. And congratulations to all the art students that were here today, and I have no doubt that my daughter will be continuing art all the way up through high school and beyond. Looking forward to Art Sparks tomorrow, and I hope everyone has an amazing spring break and has time to rest. And I know schedules just get absolutely crazy till the end of the year after that. So rest up, buckle up. We're almost there.
And with that, item J, adjournment. It's recommended the Board of Education adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned.